from the Comcast Business Studios, powering possibilities. 97.5 The Fanatic and 97.5thefanatic.com. Now, a Fanatic special. Phillies spring training, live from Baycare Ballpark in Clearwater, Florida. Here is Andrew Salchunas on 97.5 The Fanatic and 97.5thefanatic.com.
And a good Monday morning, Philadelphia. I'm Andrew Salchunas. Welcome into the Midday Show here on 97.5 The Fanatic. And as you just heard it in the intro, a special Midday Show the next 2 days as I am broadcasting from Baycare Ballpark, the beautiful Baycare Ballpark here in Clearwater, Florida. Just an absolute gorgeous place. I mean, it's a bucket list item for a lot of people. It's my second time down here. I'm absolutely blessed to be down here. It's just beautiful. Just walking around Florida yesterday when we first landed, and then being down here today, and it's an absolute treat to be down here. And I hope that you can all have the opportunity to come down here at some point, because trust me, it's an experience unlike any other. Today, there's no game at Baycare. The Phillies are actually on the road in Dunedin, which is basically the town over from Clearwater. They'll be playing the Blue Jays on the road. So right now in front of me, I'm watching a field with the batting cages set up, some tarps set up because it is raining a little bit, and the players are warming up in the outfield because, again, it's spring training, and it's right down the road. So the guys are basically doing their pregame work right now. I'm watching Brandon Marsh jog, which is actually a good sight. Watching Brandon Marsh jog, I'm seeing Nick Castellanos, a bunch of the players are going to be participating in the game today, doing some work. I posted some stuff on social media earlier today. I saw Marsh and Rojas getting some outfield work done, and then they're just going to hop on the bus probably around 11:30 and head on over, and they'll play their game at 1 o'clock. And then tomorrow we'll be doing the show in the outfield right next to Frenchie's in left field because the Phils are playing at home tomorrow. So we'll be doing the shows the next 2 days, and it's going to be a lot of Phillies focus. Now, I do know today is going to be a busy day, especially later on the show, because 1 o'clock, it was announced earlier today that Jason Kelce will be holding a press conference. We don't know what that totally entails, but my guess is it's a retirement press conference, either that or it could be the announcement that he's going to play one more year, but it's going to be the retirement season, right? But I don't know, guys. When I watched that trailer for his documentary, I said it on the best show ever. I remember I was filling in for Tyrone. All right, we're about to watch his final season. It just seems like it might be it, but we'll get that your way at 1 o'clock. But until then, it's a Phillies-focused show today. I've already had the opportunity to interview a couple of players. I spoke with Jeff Hoffman, Phillies reliever, who was tremendous last year, all season long, and then down the stretch especially, and then in the playoffs. I mean, he was Mr. Reliable. It was him and Jose Alvarado. I also spoke with Darick Hall, who's got a different role this year. Last year, if you remember, he started the season as your first baseman because Rhys Hoskins got hurt right toward the end of spring, so Darick actually took over first base duties until he got hurt. And now it's a little bit of a different role for him this year because Bryce Harper, as we know, will be the starting first baseman for this team on opening day and for the majority of the season. So we'll play those interviews later on. We got a lot in store for you, but it's a Phillies-focused show. So what I want to do today is talk about the Phillies and our expectations. I told you I told you this last week. We're going to be doing a deep dive in Phillies baseball talk over the next 2 days, and I can't wait for it. You guys know me. I'm a seam head. I love Phillies baseball. I love the Eagles. I love the Sixers. I love the Flyers, but the Phillies and baseball is a special place in my heart. So to be doing this down here, we're going to be focused heavily on the Phillies today and tomorrow. And really the first question for you guys at 610-632-0975 is how you are heading into the season as a Phillies fan. Like, what are you doing? What are your expectations? What is your mindset? I know I did a show a couple weeks ago about the feel of, World Series or bust. And I don't think they're at the Sixers level yet, but hear me out. You know that when it comes to the Sixers, the way you're watching them right now is the wake me up when. It's wake me up when they get to the second round, or for some of you, just wake me up when they get out of the second round. And I wonder if we're going to get to that point with the Phillies just yet, and I wonder for some of you if you've reached that point. And I remember we did a poll on that, and I'll revisit that at some point during the show. But that was the mindset for a lot of people. I could already tell that it's like, all right, I love this team. I love how much fun they have. I love the vibes of this team. But, all right, enough is enough. It's time to win a World Series. But this is a great group of players, guys. Like, this is a good team. And we're going to go into another season filled with expectations of getting to a World Series. And I think that's what we should do. But I think you should also be fair to yourself, and try to enjoy it. One of my biggest things in sports is trying to enjoy the day to day. That was my biggest thing with the Sixers this year. I told you I was taking an 82-game educational approach. And the reason for that was, one, I wanted to see what this team was made of for the playoffs before I made expectations of winning the championship, because we do that every single year with every team, right? We are all guilty of it. Every single year is the year. The Eagles were supposed to win the Super Bowl last year. The Phillies were supposed to win the World Series last year. The Sixers were supposed to get to the NBA Finals like 5 times now at this point. The Flyers will eventually, once they start, continuing to get better, they might make the playoffs this year. Next year or the year after, there's going to be fans saying, all right, this is the year they win the Stanley Cup. And I feel like sometimes when we have these expectations, when we say World Series are bust, or NLCS are bust, or Super Bowl are bust, or NBA Finals are bust, it gets to the point where you lose some of your actual enjoyment of the season itself. And that's one of the things I want to try to do now. Before we get to the regular season, because we got some time, I want to try to instill it into you right now that you should just take enjoyment of this season as much as you can before you get too far into your expectations and too far into the mindset of, all right, wake me up when. Because I'm sitting here right now. The guys are starting to, they're doing their warm-ups, throwing the baseball right now. I'm watching Nick Castellanos. I'm watching JT Realmuto. I think I see Harper out there, right? Guys, you have an all-star team, right? You look around the diamond. JT Realmuto not long removed from being considered the best catcher in baseball. And even though he might not have that BCIB tag for a lot of you anymore, the guy's still an all-star. The guy's still a tremendous defensive catcher, and he's fixed his swing. That's what he's been saying in the media, that he's worked on his swing, and we're expecting some good numbers at him offensively this year. Bryce Harper is now your everyday first baseman. Right, I got to position number 2. Bryce Harper is your everyday first baseman, a 2-time MVP, an MVP here with the Phillies. We know the magic that he has had in the playoffs in Red October, the majestic home run 2 years ago against the San Diego Padres. I know a lot of guys came up small in the playoffs last year, especially the final 2 games of that series. But that doesn't mean you should all of a sudden forget about how talented this group is. Bryson Stott going into another full season as the starting second baseman for the Phillies. Alec Boehm at third. Trey Turner, we know the struggles that he had for the majority of the season last year. There's been a lot of talk about guys after they get that big payday, how they might struggle that first season after getting paid. We saw that with Nick Castellanos. You want to go football route? We saw it with Jalen Hurts last year, and it's been reported. Derek Gunn reported not that long ago that Jalen Hurts, maybe the money, or maybe not just the money, but everything that comes of being the franchise quarterback, getting that big extension, and how that may make you struggle a little bit the first year after getting the big payday because it takes you out of your rhythm. So hopefully Trey Turner, it's now year 2 post big contract, and we saw the success that he had in that 2-month stretch. We know that he still has it. Can he put it together for a full season? And I don't see why you shouldn't have that expectation, and I don't know why you shouldn't have that belief, and I don't know why he shouldn't have that belief. And Schwarber's now going to be your everyday DH. Nick Castellanos is coming off of a all-star season. I still say he was your MVP last year, the Philly-specific MVP last year. There's the excitement of Johan Rojas, Brandon Marsh a full season once he comes back and healthy. Like, this is a good freaking baseball team, man. And that's just your everyday players. Now you move on to the rotation. Aaron Nola signed the big extension. And, I said the other day, last Friday, I did a topic of, the things I'm most excited about in Philadelphia sports right now. And number 1 is a season of Aaron Nola post-extension. I wonder how much did the looming extension or the contract season maybe get to him last year, needing to figure out how to pitch with the pitch clock. We saw what they did with him last year when they made the adjustments and how good he was down the stretch once they made some little tweaks to not just his windup and his stretch, but the way he got himself set before he made the pitch, where he looked at the runners differently than what he did before. You want to credit pitching coach Caleb Cotham for that. Like, he had an incredible down the stretch and into the playoffs. And now, the news that broke this morning, Zack Wheeler signs his extension, a 3-year deal. He's getting about $40 million per. This team, and credit to Dave Dombrowski and Sam Fold, this team is going to continue to add, and this team is going to continue to solidify a window to stay open. That's the beauty of this team. This window is open not just for this season. This window is open for another 2-3 years, and should be after that, right? Somebody asked me this last week, is only a year or two left of the window. No, with Bryce Harper, this window's open for a long time, and I don't think it's shutting anytime soon. So it's an exciting, exciting season. And my thing for you, I want you to go into this season, yes, with expectations. Hold this team accountable, as you should, right? If they start the season 0-10, right, hold this team accountable. But when they're 7-3, hopefully through the first 10 games, I don't want you to just be like, all right, this is great, but, they need to win the World Series this year. They need to win the World Series this year. I want them to. I expect them to get back at some point in this next year or two. And I expect them to maybe get back this year. I think they're going to work on a lot of the stuff that they struggled with down the stretch last year in that NLCS against the Diamondbacks. But bottom line is, I want you to sit back and enjoy Phillies baseball this year because it's an absolute treat. Seeing the lineup that you have in front of you, seeing the roster that you have in front of you. Guys like Whit Merrifield, who have been all-stars in this league, won't be everyday players. That's how deep this team is, and I can't wait for it. Yeah, am I swept right now? Swept up right now being here at Baycare? Of course I am. I'm watching some guys get ready to get into the cage. I'll give you some play-by-play. Bryson Stott just dropped his bat. I'll tell you everything about it, right? Like, we're going to have a lot of fun today. But I want to hear from you. How are you as a Phillies fan handling your effort as a fan, your role as a fan? What are you doing? How are you going into this season? Would love to hear from you. 610-632-0975. I want to get to as many calls as I can because it is a special 8 hours of Phillies talk. I know the deal. It's an Eagles-starved town. I'm down here at Baycare, and I still are, we have to talk Eagles later on today when Jason Kelce speaks. So we know where the Eagles are in stature in this city. But right now, this is a chance to talk Phillies baseball over the next 2 days, and I want to get to as many calls as I can at 610-632-0975 to talk about your expectations and how you're going into the season yourself. I just want you to try to enjoy it as much as you can. Don't get angry every time they lose a game. There's 162 of them. You're going to be exhausted by the end of it if you act like every single game is an Eagles game, and I know a lot of you do that. I do it in 10-game increments, right? That's how I base the team. 10-game increments, not every single day. You're going to drive yourself crazy. All right, here's the deal. So we got Jeff Hoffman. I told you we spoke with him. We will play that coming up at 11 o'clock. So in less than an hour, Jeff Hoffman. It was an incredible, incredible conversation. I can't wait to play that for you guys. You're going to fall in love with this dude because his story is incredible. And he also, basically came out of nowhere last year, right? Like, he comes out of nowhere and was one of your more reliable relievers. So we'll play that coming up at 11 o'clock. Scott Lauber of the Inquirer, Inquirer.com, will be joining us at 11:30. Larry Bowa, the legend, he'll be joining us here on site in the broadcast booth. I'm doing it from the home broadcast booth today. Larry's going to be joining us in the 12 o'clock hour. I spoke with Darick Hall earlier today. We'll play that at some point as well. We will carry the Jason Kelce press conference at 1 o'clock. So it's a busy day. It's going to be a fast day. You do not want to miss a second of it because there's going to be interviews. There's going to be Phillies conversation. There's going to be deep dives. Trust me. I'm starved for Phillies baseball. I'm watching BP right now, so I'm going to go deep into some of this baseball coverage. Ray Dunn is not in today. He had some travel issues. There's storms up north, as you probably know, so I got Tom Alvord back at the studio, so I'm going to talk to Tom as the show goes on, another fellow seam head. I can't wait for it. It's going to be a lot of fun, and we'll continue it right here on 97.5 The Fanatic.
Fanatic Sports Update.
Decision coming from an Eagles legend. I'm Tom Alvord, and this update is brought to you by Juicy Juice. Juicy Juice is 100% juice, which means no sugar added and no artificial sweeteners. Just the full fruit flavor that your kids love. Find Juicy Juice at your favorite local grocery retailer. Info at juicyjuice.com. Yes, Eagles legend Jason Kelce will be speaking to the media today with the decision on whether he will retire or return. Kelce tweeted, quote, "No keg videos this year. I have come to a decision and will address it at a press conference this afternoon." Kelce is 36 years old and coming off his 13th season as an Eagle. The presser is at 1 o'clock, and we hope to be carrying that live here on The Fanatic. Other Eagles news, ESPN's Jeremy Fowler has reported that Eagles defensive tackle Fletcher Cox is expected to retire at some point this offseason. Cox is 33 years old and coming off his 12th season as an Eagle. Phillies news, Buster Olney is reporting that the Phillies and Zack Wheeler have agreed on a contract extension. The deal is for 3 years, $126 million with no opt-outs. $42 million a year, making him the fourth highest paid pitcher in baseball history. Andrew is down in Clearwater. We have a ton of Phillies guests throughout the show. Sixers picked up a second consecutive win last night after a 120-116 victory over the Mavs. Next up is a matchup with the Brooklyn Nets tomorrow night, and the Flyers go for their third straight win tonight as they host the St. Louis Blues. You can listen to that game right here on the Fanatic. Puck drop at 7 o'clock. I'm Tom Alvord. Breaking sports news all day, every day is here. 97.5 The Fanatic and 97.5thefanatic.com.
Coming up tonight at 6, Birds Extra with Connor Thomas and Tom Albert. The latest on the Eagles and the NFL Combines. This is Philadelphia's sports station for breaking news. 97.5 The Fanatic and 97.5thefanatic.com.
Have you noticed the weather's changing? Well, March is a critical time to check your home's windows. So if you have cracked, leaky windows and ones that won't stay open or won't close properly, it's time to call the pros. Window Nation. Because right now, for every 2 windows you buy, you're going to get 2 windows free. There's no limit to how much you could save. Plus, you could save even more with 0 down, 0 interest, and no payments for 24 months. Window Nation's windows come with a full lifetime warranty and can be installed in 1 day or less. With proven quality and service, it's no wonder that thousands of customers have trusted Window Nation for their homes. And you can too. So if your old finicky windows and high energy costs from this winter are cutting deep into your finances, don't miss out. With an unlimited buy 2, get 2 free plus 0
Show 97.5 The Fanatic. I'm Andrew Salchunas, broadcasting live from Baycare Ballpark. Almost sunny Clearwater, Florida. The clouds are starting to go away a little bit. It was nice though, walking around in the rain and not being miserable, not being cold. So I didn't mind it at all. So sorry to rub it in all your faces who are listening back at home right now. We're watching BP right now. It's crazy. I was watching Schwarber, and in the batter's box, and it's so effortless. It looks like he's barely moving his arms, and ball's flying over the fence. Incredible. The guys getting set. They're taking their BP now. They'll be playing in Dunedin, taking on the Blue Jays today, and then back home tomorrow here at Baycare. We'll be broadcasting live outside in left field right near Frenchie. So if you'll be at the game, make sure you stop on by and say hi, as did a Hall of Famer just now. I'm so lucky to be joined by one of the greats, Jason Stark. Jason, what's going on, man? How are you?
Andrew, happy spring training.
Happy spring training. That's the first thing you and I said to get when you walked in here. Happy spring training, and
Always happy at spring training.
How can you go wrong with this? I mean, just sitting back, talking baseball, right? Like this is this is life, man.
It's a great time of year. It's a beautiful thing. What an invention spring training is.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah. We luck out. We're not actually working all that much. Well, you are, especially because you got some big news today. We got big news. Phillies got big news. They worked out the extension with Zack Wheeler. I would love to get your thoughts on the extension.
Yeah, 3 years and $126 million is a big number.
Oh, yeah.
The only pitchers in the history of the sport with a higher average salary than that are Justin Verlander, Max Scherzer. Wow. And then Zach slots in just behind those two. They have 6 Cy Youngs combined. He's got none. He probably should have one.
He should have one. Okay. He got robbed.
But it's a reflection of what he's done in the game since he's been in Philly.
Yeah, and he's been incredible. I mean, he's been Mr. Reliable during the regular season, in the playoffs. We know how great he's been in the playoffs.
Do we know he has the lowest opponent average and the lowest whip of any pitcher in baseball history who's made 10 starts?
Now, you cover the league nationally. Does he get the same respect nationally as some of the other pitchers? Like you mentioned Verlander. Everybody knows Justin Verlander. Is Zack Wheeler a household name?
Yeah, it's an interesting phenomenon. I feel like Zach could walk down Market Street and not get bothered. So that's a lot different than Max Scherzer. That's a lot different than Justin Verlander. I just was talking to Garrett Cole the other day in Yankees camp. It's a lot different from him. I mean, those guys are much louder. They have a much bigger profile. I think Zach intentionally does not. But within the sport, like if you start asking people to tick off the 5 best pitchers in the sport, certainly the 10 best, he always comes up, and he should.
Yeah, as he should. Now, that 3-year deal, what does that tell you when it comes to the mindset of the Phillies organization? It's championship window's open for another 3 years.
Yeah, this was one of the topics of this spring, is trying to compare these negotiations with Aaron Nola from last spring. And the big difference is because of Nola's age and because he'd never reached free agency before, it was going to have to be a long deal. Zach's been there and done that in free agency. I think he knew he wanted to be here. The length of the deal was not as important to him as it was to Aaron. And so, 3 years at a high number, that really lines up to the way that John Middleton is wired and the way Dave Dombrowski is wired. Just it mitigates the risk, even though it's so much money per year.
Yeah, it is a ton of money, but we know that the window's open, and this team, I mean, they're stacked, and there's still questions of whether or not they could make another move. I would love to know anything that you're hearing potentially that the Phillies might still be in. Obviously, Snell and Montgomery, the 2 names.
Yeah, I don't see that.
Okay.
I mean, I know anything's possible. There's never been a big move that Dave Dombrowski hasn't thought about.
Right.
But I just don't see it. They were very interested in Jordan Montgomery early when they didn't know if they were going to bring Nola back. But my understanding is that Jordan Montgomery wants a bigger deal than Aaron Nola.
Oh,
Tell me how they could justify that.
No, they can't.
There's no way. There's no way to justify it long term or short term for me. Aaron Nola has built a body of work. Jordan Montgomery, as talented as he is, as good as he has been, certainly last year when he got to Texas, the year before after he got to St. Louis, I just don't see how you can justify the years and dollars that Scott Boras wants for him. And Blake Snell, I know this is out there. It's been out there. It's out there again now because of the Bob Nightingale report. I really have never heard anybody in the Phillies hierarchy express that level of interest in Blake Snell. And, if you've been reading and hearing about the issues that the Yankees would have when you start applying the luxury tax realities of a short-term deal for Blake Snell, you're giving up a draft pick. It's impacting your ability to do other things internationally, and it becomes a much higher number than even $30 million a year when you start stacking all the tax payments on it. So, is it worth it to them to effectively pay Blake Snell $50 million to throw 138 innings or whatever it would be? I can't see how it works. I just can't.
Okay. How does this team stack up? The team that you have now in front of you, if they don't add a Montgomery, if they don't add a Snell, how does this team stack up? A team that was in the World Series 2 years ago in the NLCS last year with the likes of the Dodgers, the Braves, and I guess you have to throw in Arizona. They were in the World Series last year. So how does this team stack up? Because we know what the Dodgers did this offseason, making some big splashy moves. We know that the Braves always add as they do. Where do the Phillies stack up?
I think the Phillies are one of the 5 or 6 best rosters in the sport. And, I haven't seen the Dodgers this spring. I have seen the Braves twice. The Braves are great. Mm-hmm. They could win 110 games. It wouldn't shock me. Chris Sale pitched against the Phillies yesterday. The Braves are so excited by how he looks. He doesn't have a track record of any recent health, but the fact that he was throwing 97 with that slider, with that funky delivery this early in spring, he's a huge X factor in the sport. And I know Tani's not going to pitch, but he's pretty good doing the other stuff he does.
It's like his first at bat of spring, he goes yard.
Yeah, no surprise. He's not a real person.
No, he's a robot.
Character out of a movie. Yeah. He is. The Ohtani robot movie. Let's cast that one. But the Phillies, to me, could win the World Series.
Yeah.
I think we know that. We've seen that. So it's got nothing to do with the talent of the roster. I just think, not that anybody wants to roll the clock back to last October, but if they win one more game against the Diamondbacks, I think they're convinced they were going to win the World Series. There was going to be a parade. It was all lined up for them, man. Just start thinking about it. The Dodgers were out.
Yeah.
The Astros were out. The Yankees weren't in the field. The Mets had flamed out. They'd beaten the Braves. They'd sent them home. All of the behemoths were out of their way. It was all lined up for them to win. They were the best, most talented team in the field. But then baseball happened.
Well, what do you think
that
happened?
Could happen again.
What happened?
Oh, I think it's very obvious what happened. The Diamondbacks, they may not have the most talented roster on the field, but they have really smart people, front office, coaching staff, Brett Strom, who's their pitching coach, and they completely switched game plans. Mm-hmm. And the Phillies played right into their hands. They looked at that Phillies lineup top to bottom and thought, why do we need to throw these guys a strike?
Right.
And so they just stopped doing that. And even the two most patient guys in the lineup, Schwarber and Harper, if you go back and look at the at-bats, the strikes that they saw were in very specific counts, very specific areas of the strike zone. And the Phillies hitters just fell right into doing what the Diamondbacks
into their trap
thought they could do to them. And it's a crazy thing in this sport. There's so much information, and it's so hard to hit. And the Phillies' whole mindset, this comes from Kevin Long, right on down, has been no free strikes. Okay, that's cool. Jump on that first strike. Don't jump on that slider that's a foot out of the zone. And there was just too much chasing of that. And so there's been a big emphasis on this camp to be more selective, not to stop being aggressive, but to be very focused on what you're looking for early in camp.
Now, before I let you go, because I know you got a busy day ahead of you, you got the Zack Wheeler press conference coming your way at 11 o'clock. Would love to know 2 or 3 of the biggest storylines that you're going to be following this season going into another year of Phillies baseball in 2024.
So you're looking just at Philly stories?
Yeah.
Well, I think one of the biggest is, all right, if you look at the rotation now with Nola and Wheeler and the fact that they just committed almost $300 million to those two, it tells you how good they are at the top. I still think that pitching depth, starting pitching depth, is a big issue here. By my count, they only had 3 games all last season where they needed an emergency starter.
Yeah.
Because either the big 4 weren't available to pitch, or they went to a 6-man rotation at one point. They flip-flop Bailey Falter, for Christopher Sanchez. But other than that, like just desperately needing Dylan Covey to start a game.
Yeah.
Their starters have been really healthy for 2 years, and it's just hard to bet on that. So Spencer Turnbull's outing the other day, 2 innings, 4 strikeouts, a lot of ugly swings.
Yeah.
That was eye-opening because they need more guys like that. So that's the biggest thing. And then just Trey Turner, full season of comfort level, knowing how talented he is. Bryce Harper, full season at first base, and what the possibilities are there on both sides of the ball. Like, if you're looking for reasons the Phillies could get better, think about that.
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't have the real Bryce Harper
Right.
for 4 months last year. And they didn't really have the version of Trey Turner that they signed for 4 months last year. Suppose you get 6 months of that. This is already one of the best lineups in the game. It could be better just based on that.
Is that common for not just Trey Turner, but any player? We saw it with Castellanos, year 1 after the big contract. He didn't play the way he expected. Trey Turner. Now, I'm not focusing specifically on the Phillies here, just league-wide. I mean, and you see it in other sports. We saw it with Jalen Hurts, quarterback of the Eagles, where he signed the big contract in year 1. Because it's not just, wow, I got a lot of money. It's now I have a lot of other things to do, like advertising and commercials, and now you're the face of a franchise. Does that happen often in baseball?
Human beings still play the games.
Yeah.
And there is a responsibility that comes with a huge contract. But I think in Trey's case, a lot of it was comfort zone. He viewed this as the single most comfortable fit for him in the whole sport. And then he got to Philadelphia. Didn't get off to the kind of start he thought he would. And look, no matter who you are and what you've done in baseball, baseball's hard. And I think it's not realistic to expect human beings, even as talented as Trey Turner, not to feel the weight. And like, I know people look back on the standing ovation.
Right.
Wonder if that was a real thing. I feel like it was. I think he feels like it was. It allowed him to go to home plate not feeling as though he needed to prove something to everyone with every swing. And once he just relaxed and let his talent flow, you saw why they gave him the money. I talked to a lot of people in the game, and one thing I do every winter is do a survey of a bunch of executives all over the sport. And what was the runaway winner last winter, not this past one, but the one before, for best free agent signing in the game? Trey Turner, because the whole sport knows how good he is.
Right.
And we didn't see that guy, but I think you'll see him now.
I'm looking forward to it. Jason, listen, I appreciate it. I know you're busy today. You get to it. Zack Wheeler's press conference coming up at 11 o'clock. And try to enjoy Clearwater a little bit before you have to go up. I only got 2 days of it. You still got some time, but you enjoy yourself. Yeah, listen, 2's enough. I'll take it.
I'm confident you can do that.
Thank you, Jason. I appreciate it. There he is, Jason Stark, joining us live here at Baycare Ballpark. Just an absolute beautiful, beautiful day now. All of a sudden, the clouds are starting to go away a little bit. You got the Phillies about to take off on the road to go to Dunedin. But, yeah, they got the press conference. They got some bigger business to take care of first. The press conference with Zack Wheeler coming up at 11 o'clock as he signed his extension, 3 years, a lot of money. You just heard Jason talk about it. Jason's the best, by the way, just all the information that he has and all the knowledge and all the years he studied, not just the game of baseball, but Phillies baseball. But Zack Wheeler's contract and you know, where he stands with guys like Justin Verlander and Max Scherzer. Those guys have a bunch of Cy Youngs. Zack Wheeler does not, but Zack Wheeler's getting paid with the likes of those two players. But, look, he deserves it. I mean, what he has done since putting on a Phillies uniform has just been unbelievable. I mean, we're watching Doc at times, right? Like, think about how good Zack Wheeler has been. It's where Doc Halladay was when he first got here. It's you know, the likes of Schilling when he was, you know, pitching in his prime here in Philadelphia. I mean, Zack Wheeler's been a true ace and has been one of the better pitchers in all of baseball, and that's something that you should be excited about. That's why when I say go into this season with expectations, as you should, and you shouldn't lie to yourself. Obviously, you're going to expect them to get back to the World Series or get back to the NLCS at least, but you got to enjoy yourself as much as you can with this team because you're watching. Look, I'm telling you right now, 20 years from now, you know, when I'm taking Coop to the ballpark, when I'm bringing him down here, spring training, on his dime, obviously, when we're coming down here and we're going to be talking about the Phillies, you know, when he was first growing up, it's going to be like, man, you grew up with Zack Wheeler. You grew up with Aaron Nola, who, come the end of it, forget what you think for a second, right? Because I know I'm wishy-washy with Aaron Nola, but forget what you think for a second. He's going to go down in the record books for a lot of things with the Phillies. He's going to be top 10 in a lot of areas. And you're just seeing some of the better players that have ever put on a Phillies uniform. Like, we had legitimate conversations 2 years ago about, is this the best Phillies team of all time? Right? We had those conversations on the airwaves. I spoke with you, the callers. I went back and forth with people on social media. I mean, this team, if you do Mount Rushmores of first baseman and second baseman and third baseman and shortstop, like, look, Trey Turner, if he turns things around, which you expect him to, he's going to be up there with the likes of Jimmy Rollins, right? Bryce Harper, at some point, now that he's going to be an everyday first baseman, if he doesn't go back to the outfield, let's say he wins another MVP or two at first baseman, he's going to go down as one of the better first basemen, if not the best first baseman in Phillies franchise history. I mean, that's how good this team is, and I just want you to enjoy it as much as you can, as I'm enjoying it right now. But let's go to the phones. Let's talk about the Phillies right now because I would love to hear what your expectations are going into the season. Obviously, for a lot of you, it's going to be at least NLCS, but how are you going to handle yourself as a fan? Like, I want you to enjoy the ride as much as you can because this team could win 95-plus games as long as there's no slow starts or rough patches. And if everybody stays healthy, you heard Jason Stark talk about how, look, that could be a concern because there's not so much depth. You have a lot of great pitchers, but there's not as much deep depth. So obviously everybody has to stay healthy. But I would love to hear how you yourself will be handling this season as a Phillies fan. Let's go to Ben Salem. Dave, you're on 97.5 The Fanatic.
Hey, Andrew, how you doing, my man?
What's up, Davey? Great hearing from you, man.
I'm so envious. I love you, brother, but I wish I was down there with you right now experiencing
I
this,
wish you were down here too, man. You'll be at Citizens Bank Park before you know it.
I will be there. It's going to be my third year, and I can't wait. This show's going to be great to hear today with Larry and Jeff and Darick Hall and everybody you're going to talk to. But just my couple quick questions about the Phillies. I just heard Jason, and it sounds like they may not be in the market for Montgomery or Snell. So I'm kind of disappointed. I would definitely not sell Montgomery to a long-term deal. I agree with that. But if you could get
I'm not giving him 7-8 years.
No, that's too much, especially if they extended Wheeler. But
he wanted more than Nola. He wanted either more money or more years than Aaron Nola.
And that's just too much for them to do right now. But it's just like I'm hoping they get off to a good start this year. And you're looking for expectations. Here's my expectations about this season. I hope this team comes back with a chip on their shoulder. What happened last year? They know they should have beat Arizona. They know they should have done it. And they come back determined and just go out there and do everything they can to do to get off to a good start and just stay in the race and then go from there when playoffs start.
Absolutely, Davey. I appreciate the call, man. And I think that's what the feel is inside the clubhouse. So, I'll give you a little tease. We're gonna play the Jeff Hoffman interview. I spoke with Phillies reliever Jeff Hoffman earlier this morning. Obviously they got to get ready for their game. And I asked him a question about that. We know the fun this team has, right? Like it's well known at this point, not just in Philadelphia. It's well known nationally that this group knows how to have fun, and they know how to have fun with you, right? Like, them showing up at Xfinity Live, and I know they're up in that VIP area, but they make their way down. They go in the Bull, right? And they're around everybody. We know the connection that we have with this team, not just from the field of play, but also how they are around the city, and it's great. I love that. I was, Dave used the word envious, that he's envious of me here being here. I'm envious of the people that got to experience the Broad Street Bullies, right? The Flyers of the 70s that were going to your neighborhood bar and not afraid of being around Philadelphians, right? This Phillies team is more like that, where they are out and about and they are connecting with the fans, and I think that's great. But I also asked Jeff, like, all right, how do you walk that fine line of having all the fun that you have, but you realize that you fell short of the goal last year? And as Jason Stark said, they realized they fell short. Everything was set up for them to win the World Series last year, and unfortunately they did not when they blew a 2-1 and a 3-2 series lead against the Diamondbacks. So it's how you handle yourself in the clubhouse, the joy that they have, the fun that they have, which is part of their connection, but also realizing that they fell short of a goal last year, and how you bounce back and reach that goal this year. And Jeff spoke about that, so we'll play that coming up at some point in the 11 o'clock hour. I told you I was going to play it at 11, but Zack Wheeler's press conference will be at 11 o'clock, so we're going to tap into that. You'll hear Zack Wheeler on his new contract coming up at 11 o'clock. I told you, it's a Phillies-focused 8 hours of programming as we're here in Baycare. So that will be at 11. Scott Lauber of the Inquirer will be joining us coming up at 11:30. He'll actually be joining us from Dunedin, which is where the Phillies will be playing the Blue Jays today. And at some point, we'll play Jeff Hoffman. We'll play Darick Hall. We'll carry the Jason Kelce press conference. It's going to be a show that's flying by, but I would love to hear from you. Your thoughts going into this season. How are you yourself going to handle it? I know what your expectations are. It's World Series or bust. We don't have to run from that, right? Nobody's going to say, just get to the playoffs and I'll be happy. No, you're going to be talking World Series or bust. But how are you going to handle yourself going into every single game? You can't handle it like an Eagles game. You will drive yourself crazy. We'd love to hear more on that from you at 610-632-0975. Zack Wheeler's press conference coming up at 11 o'clock, all right here on 97.5 The Fanatic.
Fanatic Sports Update.
Kelce decision coming. I'm Tom Alborn. This update is brought to you by Dell Technologies. Dell Technologies is celebrating 40 years with anniversary savings on their most popular tech like the XPS 13 Plus, powered by Intel Core processors. Low prices await at Dell.com/deals. Yes, Eagles legend Jason Kelce is set to speak to the media today with a decision on whether he will retire or return. Kelce tweeted this morning, quote, "No keg videos this year. I have come to a decision and will address it at a press conference this afternoon." Kelce is 36 years old and coming off his 13th season as an Eagle. The presser is slated for 1 o'clock, and we'll be carrying that live right here on The Fanatic. Other Birds news, ESPN's Jeremy Fowler is reporting Eagles defensive tackle Fletcher Cox is expected to retire at some point this offseason as well. Cox is 33 years old and coming off his 12th season as an Eagle. Some big Phillies news. Buster Olney is reporting the Phillies have made it official that Zack Wheeler and the Phils agree on a 3-year, $126 million contract extension. No opt-outs, $42 million a year. Andrew is down in Clearwater. We have a ton of Phillies guests throughout the show, so you're going to want to stay tuned. Sixers picked up their second consecutive win yesterday after a 120-116 win over the Dallas Mavericks. Next up is a matchup with the Brooklyn Nets tomorrow night. And the Flyers go for 3 straight wins as they host the St. Louis Blues. You can listen to that game right here on The Fanatic. Puck drop is at 7 o'clock. I'm Tom Alborn. Breaking sports news all day, every day is here. 97.5 The Fanatic and 97.5thefanatic.com.
This is your home for Sunday Night Baseball from ESPN. Now, more of our Phillies spring training special with Andrew Salchunas live from Clearwater, Florida. This is 97.5 The Fanatic at 97.5thefanatic.com.
Yes, welcome back to the Midday Show here on 97.5 The Fanatic. I'm Andrew Salchunas as I'm sitting here from the home radio booth. So I'm keeping the seat warm for Fransky in L.A. Watching some BP unfold in front of us. We were watching Schwarber earlier, and it's crazy how effortless the swing was. He's just raking the ball over the place. Bryson Stott had a good swing on him. I just watched Brandon Marsh walk up through the up the dugout. He's walking up to the cage. He looks like he's moving all right, which was good. I saw him jogging earlier in the show, so hopefully he's okay. One of the biggest storylines right now in this spring is the battle between Christian Pache and Johan Rojas. It's funny. When we've been doing the shows, when we've been talking about the Phillies in the outfield, right? We've been talking about, should they get this guy? Should they get that guy? And then when guys like Bellinger came off the books and he already signed, you're going, all right, so the Phillies have who they have. And it's going to be Nick Castellanos in right field, and it's going to be, who else? Who else is going to play? And it's always been Marsh Rojas, to the point where it almost feels like Christian Pache's forgotten in this city at times, because he was a guy that struggled with the A's before he came to Philadelphia. He was once a pretty high prospect in the Major League pipeline. And then he did some good things last year. I know he's banged up at times and missed some time, but he ended up playing in the playoffs, and he's actually had a tremendous spring. His glove is ridiculous. He's as good, if not better, than Johan Rojas, if we're being honest. Like, look, Rojas is a tremendous outfielder. If I'm going to rank the outfielders, I'll probably still go Rojas 1. It's Rojas 1, Pache 2, Marsh 3 in terms of fielding and everything that they can take care of in the outfield. Pache's making the case he should be on this Major League roster. And I feel bad because I'm literally talking about him, looking at him, and the other name that I'm going to bring up is Jake Cave, who's standing to his right. And it seems like those two guys are fighting for a roster spot. And I know Jake Cave can play the infield as well, but sometimes you just got to keep the best player on your roster. And Christian Pache has put together a nice little spring here in front of us, and I wonder if he should be able to make the roster, because there's still the unknown of whether or not Rojas can be your everyday starting center fielder to the point where he's not, an automatic out, which it became. I know he's been working on at the plate, and he's been working on hitting, and maybe he has a good rest of his spring, and he'll be your starting center fielder if Marsh isn't ready to go. But you have to have somebody play left, and it could be Pache. You bring in Whit Merrifield, and bringing in Merrifield all of a sudden provides you a guy that can play outfield and also on the infield, and he can now all of a sudden be that platoon guy. So I feel bad for a guy like Jake Cave as I'm watching him do some bunting drills, but he might be the odd man out because the way Pache's been playing, and he deserves to get the recognition, because it's just funny. I feel like we haven't talked about Pache that much at all, but he's made his case to be on this roster. All right, so coming up in about 7 minutes, if it happens right at 11 o'clock, if it's the same speed as the Eagles, it won't happen until tomorrow. But Zack Wheeler will be speaking to the media coming up at 11 o'clock as he signed his extension today. And I would love to talk more about that. I mean, Zack Wheeler, I kind of said it last segment. Zack Wheeler has become one of the better pitchers that the Phillies have had since the turn of the century, since 2000. If you think about it, look, I'm not comparing him to Dak Holliday, but sometimes you have to sit back and go, all right, he might be at his best as good as Doc at times. Now, he's not the same workhorse. We know that, right? Like, Holliday would go 9 innings every single night if he was able to, and if the game allowed it to. Whereas Wheeler's a guy that might give you 6 strong and come out in the 7th or not even go into the 7th. So, and that's baseball. Baseball's changed a lot. But when you see that money thrown out there, obviously your first thought is, wow, that's a lot of money. Jason Stark, off air and on air, was like, man, it's a lot of money for Zack Wheeler. A lot of money for a guy that isn't Max Scherzer or Justin Verlander, and he's getting the money like those guys. But he's pitched like those guys, right? He's pitched like those guys. It's not his fault that the voters robbed him of a Cy Young a few years ago when Corbin Burns, who was only pitching 4 or 5 innings a game, won Cy Young. And Burns is a tremendous pitcher, but Zack Wheeler that year was going 6-7. He was the traditional ace. And it's great to have him on your roster. And now, I know it might be top heavy, but Wheeler, Nola, 1-2, And when the story is get me to the playoffs for a lot of people, you have the guys to do it. You have two guys that can go out there and give you a start that can put you in the best possible position to win a playoff game. And that's what Wheeler and Nola have done the last 2 years. I know they fell short in the NLCS, and I know Nola's last start wasn't great, but they put you in a position to get back to an NLCS back-to-back years. So, man, I love that they solidified that. I love that they gave him the money. I love that they didn't worry about going into free agency, because I don't know what would have happened had he gone into free agency. What if he put up more numbers like he has the last couple of years? Another team could have given him more money. So I give Dave Dombrowski a lot of credit for getting that done before the season started. They handled the Aaron Nola situation great. I mean, that's another thing. We are always so critical of the GMs in these towns, as we should be, right? Because they're the guys that are putting together these rosters. But Dave Dombrowski has done such a great job. He's done a job where he has put this team in a spot to win a World Series year in and year out, or contend to win a World Series year in and year out. And he's not done, right? They might not get Blake Snell. They might not get Jordan Montgomery, as you heard Jason Stark say earlier today. But come trade deadline time, you know that they're going to be active, and you know that they're going to try to get some guys that can make this team better. But going into it right now, they are, as Jason Stark said, one of the 5-6 best rosters in Major League Baseball, and that's something to be very excited about. The number to climb in, 610-632-0975. Now back at our studio, Tommy Alver. Tom, what's going on, man? Good morning.
What's going on, Andy? How are you?
I'm doing good. Don't feel bad for me. It's raining a little bit heavier here. It's
poor guy.
So don't feel too bad for me at this point. I would love to get your reaction to what I had to say to start the show. You are a great baseball mind as well, and so you know that it's a long season. You know that you shouldn't handle this as an Eagles game day in and day out. But do you think we as Philadelphia, because you also know the fans, right? You do this for a living just like I do. You interact with people every single day like I do. Will fans be able to sit back and enjoy the season, or will the World Series expectations maybe get the best of some fans?
I'd love to say that fans will be like yourself, that fans will be like me, and I think a majority of them probably will. They'll be able to just enjoy Phillies baseball. It's a great game. We're going to get 162 games of a full Bryce Harper, full season of Bryce Harper. Hopefully, not mentally stable, a Trey Turner that is focused and has gotten that weight of the monkey off of his back. Obviously,
by the way, I found that interesting. Like Jason Stark, he knows a lot. Just when I say that, like,
that's
he knows
fair to
things
say,
that are happening before they happen and may not report them. He literally said when he was on with me that Trey Turner does believe that made an impact. And if he thinks that made an impact, then sure, let's give him a standing ovation every single day, right? Like whatever it takes. If you can get the guy that's going to hit over 300 and is hitting close to 30 bombs and hitting doubles, hitting triples, I mean, why shouldn't you sit back and enjoy that even more?
Yeah, he didn't get that contract on accident. Like, Trey Turner, when he is right, is a top 10, top 15, top 20 player in all of baseball, and he was so good down the stretch. Obviously, the playoffs happen, and we're going to get that out of our minds, that last series against the Diamondbacks. But, like, I'm getting a full season of right Trey Turner. I'm getting a full season of healthy Bryce Harper. Now Zack Wheeler and Aaron Nola do not have that contract looming over their shoulders like Nola did last year, and maybe Wheeler would have this year if they didn't sign that contract. I would love to say that Phillies fans out there would have that mindset. But I know how this city works, man. I know how this city works.
And that sucks.
It's World Series or bust, and I think people are going to have that type of mindset all year long.
I hope that's not the case. And I would love for people to check in at 610-632-0975 and almost assure me that won't be the case, even though I'm with you. I feel like that will be what a lot of people are doing. But, man, I just sit back and I'm watching the guys that are on the field right now. I go, damn, this is a good baseball team, and I can't wait to sit back and just enjoy it. Like, man, I went to so many bad baseball games in a 10-year stretch where they didn't make the playoffs. Like, I want to make the most of this because I'm not joking. Like, Bryce Harper, being that he's a first baseman now, will go down as one of the best first basemen in Phillies franchise history, right? You have Dick Allen, you have Ryan Howard, and you have Pete Rose for a couple cups of coffee, right? It's Bryce Harper is going to be up there for a lot of guys, and Trey Turner might get up there with Jimmy Rollins if he can have that 2-month stretch that he had last year every single month, which we expect him to because of what he got paid. Like, man, this is a team that I don't want to just ignore and miss because I have such high expectations. So we're going to hear the Zack Wheeler press conference momentarily. All the interviews that we will be doing and have done already will be posted on 975thefanatic.com. There's a lot of it. Dude, I'm telling you, I can't wait to play. We were gonna play the Jeff Hoffman interview now, but because we're waiting Zack Wheeler's press conference, we'll push that off a little bit. But I can't wait for you guys to hear his story. It's tremendous, his story of how he got to where he's at now in the majors and what he went through to get to the Phillies, and then how much everything just kind of changed. He got goosebumps while we were doing the interview. Like the dude's just a great guy. So is Darick Hall. We'll play that later on as well. And once more, Jason Kelce will be speaking to the media coming up at 1 o'clock. We don't know what it's about, but I'm going to guess it's a retirement. And that's going to suck when it's officially said that he will be retiring. We're getting more and more reports that Fletcher Cox will probably be leaning toward retirement. I know Brandon Graham wants to do the one more year, so I wonder if Jason Kelce decides. So we'll find that out coming up at 1 o'clock. But right now, a man that just got paid a lot of money, Zack Wheeler, speaking to the media.
We are happy to make Zack available to you this morning. He is joined by Phillies President of Baseball Operations, Dave Dombrowski. And I'd also like to make special mention and acknowledgement of some of Zack's representatives that are here. B.B. Abbott, welcome. Thank you for being here. Before we start with questions, I'm going to turn it over to Dave, who's going to make some opening remarks, followed by Zack. Dave.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, everybody, for being here. It's a very happy day for the Phillies organization to be able to announce this 3-year extension with Zack. We're thrilled. To us, Zack is one of the best pitchers in the game of baseball. I don't think I could think of another individual I'd rather have take the ball in a big game for a club than Zack. He was very eager to get this done too and remain a Philly and be part of the organization and what we have going on. It's kind of a sidelight. This has been something that worked a little bit of time because he kind of took a diversion and had a baby in the family in the meantime, so that was great. But also a special thanks to B.B. Abbott for getting this done with us. We worked very hard, talked many times on it. Always very special to John Middleton and ownership. I see Jim Buck is here too, for what they do for us to support us. Working through this day in and day out with me and very supportive in making this happen. And the rest of our baseball group, Corinne Landry worked with us too in trying to get this done and accomplishing a great deal. So it's a happy day for us. Rod and Caleb have other things that they wanted to take care of on the field. Figured that we'd handle this and they'll be available later on for comments. So thank you for being here.
Thanks. Zack?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you to ownership, Dave, and my agency, and most of all my family, my wife, and she's at home recovering right now. So thank you to her for the support and always being there for me, and my mom and dad and my brothers. So everybody couldn't do it without them. Coaches along the way, current coaches, and all that. So greatly appreciated, and just happy to be a Philly.
Thank you.
We're happy you're Philly too.
All right, thanks. So with that, we can start with questions. If you have a question, raise your hand. There's a microphone on my right with Dylan, and there's one on the left. You can start over here in the middle with Jason.
Dave, you're basically paying Zack what Cy Youngs and future Hall of Famers are receiving in the game. What does that say about what you think he's accomplished in these last 4 years as a Philly?
Well, you're right about that, what we're paying him. And there's a couple of guys out there that are really at the top of the level. But what it's telling us is that we think Zack is as good as anybody in baseball right now. I think a little bit different scenarios when you look maybe length of their careers, where they're more so what they accomplished earlier in their careers at young pitchers, and then continue to do that. But for us right now, when we look over the last handful of years, we think Zack Wheeler is as fine a pitcher in the game of baseball. He's coming out at a time in which he was a free agent at the end of the year. He'd been younger than those individuals. I preferred working on a shorter-term deal rather than a longer-term deal, which fit for both us and for him. So it tells you that we think he's one of the best pitchers in the game of baseball, and we could make an argument when we start talking in the very beginning. When I talked to BB, and we start talking about it, I said, well, let's establish right now he's one of the best pitchers in baseball. Is he first, second, third? We don't have to get into that, but he's one of the best. And the reality is, when you start not only talking about being one of the best pitchers, one of the best big game pitchers in the game of baseball. So in the postseason, when he takes that ball, I can't think of anybody that would rather have taken the mound than Zach.
Zach, can I just follow up by asking you basically the same thing? What do you think this contract says about what you've accomplished since you've been in Philadelphia?
I don't know. I mean, I just try to take the ball every time out and just be consistent and be consistently good. I got to give credit to, the training staff keeping me out there on the field and, working with Caleb, our pitching coach. He's helped me out a ton, off-speed wise and, kind of just taking me to that next level and, just doing it consistently and in season, postseason. I love those big moments and, I don't know, I really just enjoy being here in Philly. The fans are the best and, playing in, Citizens Bank in October, there's nothing like it.
Last time we talked to you, Zach, you talked about how important it was to feel happy, for your family to be happy here, and I was wondering what it is about this organization that's enabled you to find that happiness.
Yeah, I mean, it's just first class all the way, and they really take care of our families and, put that effort in to make them comfortable and happy, and that, that makes us happy as players because we're at the field all day, they're taking care of the family, and, it just makes our life easier. And, like I said, it's just first class and wouldn't want to be anywhere else.
Zach, when you went into this, how much did you have to think about how much longer do I want to pitch? Because I know you're 33 going on 34, not like 38, 39, but we presume that guys want to pitch, into their late 30s. Do you want, how much did you have to decide, like, how long do I want to do this?
Yeah, I do enjoy pitching and I want to be here. I love competing, but I don't want to play until I'm old, and I want to be around my family. And but I'm definitely, enjoying the moment here and enjoying every moment I take them out. And it's special. Not everybody gets to do it. Not everybody gets to do it as long as I have so far, and I'm grateful for that.
And just to follow, it's not every pitcher who's early 30s or better than their late 20s performance-wise. Why do you think you're a better pitcher now maybe than you were, when pitchers are typically, quote-unquote, in their prime?
Sure. I think, just health, just being healthy. And like I said, just giving credit to Paul, or our trainer that I work with every single day, for an hour or two, whatever it is. And, he's just keeping me on the field. And like I said, Caleb, he's just kind of taking my game to the next step. And, just being consistent every time out. I haven't always had that consistency, whether it be, command-wise or inning to inning, game to game. I just feel like I'm in the right spot right now, and I'm able to go out there and just do well every time.
So it sounds like from the very beginning you told BB and a shorter-term deal is what you were looking for. At no point where you're like, let's talk 7-8 years. Is that correct?
Correct. I think, just my outlook on it, like I said, I don't want to be old and out there, maybe not doing my best, what I'm used to doing, pitching-wise. And, I think it works out for me. I think it works out for the team. And I think we're all in agreement on that.
And the player can kind of steer negotiations in a sense. Did you make it clear that you wanted something to get done this spring?
Yeah. I mean, I'd rather it happen now than go to free agency, and who knows what's going to happen. So, I'm happy, like I said, in Philly, and it's first-class organization, and I wouldn't want to be anywhere else, especially pitching in October and Citizens Bank.
And then, Dave, how does this, moving forward, beginning in 2025 when his contract begins, how does this affect future payroll, future roster construction with the AAV, what it is? I mean, what can you say about that?
Well, we have a high payroll, as you know. Ownership has been appreciative. I mean, we're very appreciative of what they give us. We set that parameters on a yearly basis. We're also very supportive, and our fans have been great. They come through the gates, and great sponsorship and in that regard, so we drive revenues, and that's always a challenge. There's a limit on how much we can do. It's not unlimited. But those will be questions I think we'll face more at the end of the year once we see how our season progresses. We looked at it in different ways. There are challenges because, again, there are certain parameters. But the way I look at it is, okay, we'll take those challenges when we know we can start off with the top of the rotation of Wheeler and Nola, and we have other good pitchers that we like with Suarez and Walker and Sanchez, as we think is coming to another level, and we have some good young pitching behind them with guys like Abel and Painter being ready next year. Figure let's tackle that at the end of the year, and we'll see where it takes us. But sure, there'll be some challenges, but it's a good place to start.
Press conference, it was Dave Dombrowski and also Zack Wheeler. Look, credit to Dave Dombrowski for putting together this team that he is and keeping guys together the way that he is. And I thought that was a great question at the end there about how does this contract maybe affect future signings. And look, you do have to rely on young players, right? Like that is a part of all sports, right? We talk about it with the Eagles all the time. You need to hit your draft picks because you can't be paying everybody hundreds of millions of dollars, right? You have to find some guys on cheaper level deals before they get paid. You know, that was the beauty of guys like Rhys Hoskins, right? The stuff that he was able to do before he, got his big payday that he got with Milwaukee. And so, right now there's a belief that there's young guys in the system. We've seen Mick Abel pitch a little bit. I know McGarry looked good the other day. And then there's the excitement of Andrew Painter. Now it's not going to be for some time now, but you have two legit horses right now in Zack Wheeler and Aaron Nola, and then there is high expectations for Christopher Sanchez. We'll see if he can continue pitching. Once guys get figured out, right? That happens. It's the chess match of Major League Baseball. Does he eventually get figured out? We'll find out. But yeah, you got some guys right now that you can depend on that can give you some solid innings. And then the beauty of this team is the way this bullpen is set up. And you have guys like Nola and Wheeler don't have to go 9 innings every single night. They can go 6-7 innings, and then you have the horses in the bullpen, one of which is Jeff Hoffman. So we'll be playing the Jeff Hoffman interview around 11:55. We'll play Hoffman around 11:55. Scott Lauber is going to be joining us at 11:30. So here's the deal. Here's how we're setting up the show. There will be something every segment for you to listen to, right? So the opening segment was just me jabbering about how great it is here at Citizens Bank at Baycare Ballpark in Clearwater. We had Jason Stark on live, which was tremendous. You can hear that on 97.5thefanatic.com. You just heard the press conference. Zack Wheeler signed the extension. Coming up next at 11:30, we'll be joined by Scott Lauber. Around 11:55, we'll play the Jeff Hoffman interview. Later in the 12 o'clock hour, we'll be joined by Larry Bowa. At 1 o'clock, you'll hear the Jason Kelce press conference. And then after the Jason Kelce press conference, we'll play the interview of Darick Hall. So we have something every single segment. So you don't want to miss anything because it's all tremendous conversation. I'm really excited to play the Hoffman interview for you guys coming up later on this hour. And coming up next, before we get to Lauber, more on Zack Wheeler. I have some numbers that Tom sent my way of just how dominant this dude is. And the reason why I asked Stark that question earlier of, man, does he get recognized nationally? And he says he does. But you watch ESPN, you know that Zack Wheeler's not talked about as much as guys like Justin Verlander and Max Scherzer. It's probably because of the way he handles himself, and he's not as much of a character as some of the other pitchers around Major League Baseball. But he's up there. He's up with the best, and that's why he got paid the way that he did. So we'll continue that conversation. Would love to hear from you at 610-632-0975. What are your, not expectations going into the season, but how are you expecting yourself going into the season? How are you going to handle this season? Because, guys, you have a lot of great baseball players that you can watch this year, and part of me wants to just sit back and enjoy it, and then the playoff conversation will come. But I think we could sit back and enjoy ourselves a little bit before we get worried about Red Octobers. I'm Andrew Salchunas, the Midday Show right here, 97.5 The Fanatic.
Fanatic Sports Update.
Jason Kelce's decision. I'm Tom Malbord, and this update is brought to you by Robert Half. 9 out of 10 hiring managers are having
Head on over to Dunedin, which is where the Blue Jays have their facility. So the Phillies about to play the road game. I imagine it happens today. It's a light Florida rain today, so they'll probably be playing. Dude, Tom, I was saying it to you during the Zack Wheeler press conference. So we're watching BP. I got Mike Vito here, incredible engineer, and, of course, many other things with us at 97.5 The Fanatic. And I'm sitting back, and I'm watching Pache, dude, and he is just raking. Like, everything's in the gap, and everything's over the fence. And I know that it's BP, but I go back to what I'm serious. Why didn't we talk about him? Why was it all Rojas, and Marsh? Dude, I mean, Christian Pache might actually be a starter at the beginning of the season if Brandon Marsh is hurt and can't be ready to go. And if that's the case, then man, we got to start talking about, all right, Pache's earning himself a starting job on this team.
Yeah, it's crazy, and I think he goes so under the radar just because Rojas was the guy all year for a majority of the second half of last season and come
and he's
playoff
a
time.
homegrown player.
Oh, yeah.
We love that. We love the homegrown talent. We would rather take a guy that hits 200 homegrown than a guy that hits 350 and 80 home runs in a season because, like, Tom, I think it was you that we did the show together. With all due respect to Bryson Stocks, I love the guy.
It was the Ohtani one, right?
It was the Ohtani trade discussion.
Yeah.
No, you can't give up Stotty for Ohtani. I'm like, what?
Yeah, maybe the greatest player ever to play baseball.
Yeah, exactly.
Ever.
We love it. We love the homegrown talent that we sometimes ignore better baseball players because they didn't come up through the farm system. And I understand how important a farm system is, but man, like I'm watching Christian Pache get hit, and I'm going, maybe the whole Rojas may start and AAA may not be such a bad idea. However, if Marsh isn't ready to go opening day, then Rojas is on your opening day roster. But it's just something it's crazy that we basically forgot about Christian Pache during all this offseason conversation. Now, Zack Wheeler, you sent me some numbers earlier today. I want to thank you for it, Tom. And Sarah Langs, who does just a tremendous job covering Major League Baseball, she put out some stats of Zack Wheeler. His career with the Phillies. You want to know how good this dude is?
I'd love to.
It's in 101 starts. His ERA is just a tick over 3. It's 3.06. And remember, the DH is now here in the National League, so it's not like he's been pitching with an automatic out in the ninth hole every single night that he pitches. So an ERA just over 3 in 101 starts. His WHIP is just 1.06. I mean, he's almost at 1. He's almost below 1, in which he is in the playoffs. Now, this is why you pay the dude. This is why you give the guy Scherzer and Verlander money, right? In the postseason, Zack Wheeler, in 10 starts, 11 games, because remember, he came in relief that final game of the playoffs, unfortunately, in which they lost. He's got an ERA of 2.42, so his ERA drops 0.6 points in the playoffs, so you know he's a big game pitcher, and his WHIP is 0.73. The guy's just been absolutely dominant. And you sent me something that Alex Coffey put out, and I think we're going to have Alex on tomorrow. We got Scott Lauber on today, Alex from the Inquirer tomorrow. She tweeted out some money stuff because I know everyone's worried about draft picks and whatnot. Here's her tweet. With Wheeler's extension, Phillies will have $228 million in guaranteed money committed to 9 players in 2025. For those asking about draft penalties moving forward, they'll have to stay below $281 million in 2025. If not, their 2026 draft pick is moved back 10 spots. Can I say something about Major League Baseball draft? I don't give a crap. Like, how many times has the number 1 overall pick not amounted to much? I know sometimes, like, it's the can't-miss prospect, but I've heard the term can't-miss prospect a billion times.
Ever heard of Mickey Moniak?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that worked out really well. And, look at what he's doing in L.A. now when he only plays half the season because he only faces right-handed pitching. He's a platoon player, right? So, like, they gave up a platoon player pretty much to get Brandon Marsh and more stuff with that. And, like, how can you – I don't care. Like, I see so many people worried about this draft thing all the time. I know that there are Phillies fans, legitimate Phillies fans, that don't want to sign a Blake Snell or a Jordan Montgomery because of that same issue for next year's draft, that if you sign one of those guys, it may move your draft pick 10 spots. I don't give a crap. I've seen too many draft picks not amount to anything. The Phillies, for like 10 years, their first-round picks amounted to nothing. Some of them didn't even make it to the major leagues. Have you seen Cornelius Randolph yet? I'm still waiting for him to make it to the big league club, right? So I don't understand why people get so worried about draft picks all the time when ultimately, it doesn't matter, especially when you have a championship window. I understand. I said it. I sound like I'm talking out both sides of my mouth. I said it last segment that you still need to have the crop of players in the farm system come up and contribute because you need to be able to do that. You need to have a steady flow of talent at low money so that you can sign some of the big free agents. But you signed Zack Wheeler that 3-year deal, that extension, I should say, because your window is still open. And that, screw draft picks. I don't care. 10 spots. What is that really going to happen? Like, I remember this was the last time I ever saw a prospect in the draft that I was like, this is the guy I would love to have, and I need him, and they didn't get him, and it was A.J. Puck. A.J. Puck was this big left-handed pitcher, pitched for Florida, right? Lefty, flamethrower. He was going to be the next big ace off the left side in Major League Baseball. He's a reliever now, right? Like, he's a guy that sometimes closes, sometimes set up. And, relievers are important, but you get what I'm saying. Like, he was the last can't-miss pitching prospect. You need to get this guy. You need to trade up and get this guy or whatever. I forget where the Phillies were drafting at that point. I know they were in the running for A.J. Puck, and I needed him. I needed a flame-throwing left-handed big pitcher. He's nothing now, right? So, like, what? I don't understand why they're like we're so worried about the draft selection. Oh, my God, they're going to move back 10 spots if they go over the luxury tax. Good. I want to go over the luxury tax because that means this team is committed to winning, and that's what that extension for Zack Wheeler shows you, that they are committed to winning. I mean, you already knew that before the extension, but, man, I mean, this team is so good. It's so deep that it's such a scary lineup that you're going to have to face. And then there's us. So when we play the Jeff Hoffman interview next segment, he talks about us. He talks about the fans and how scary of an environment it must be for opposing players. So this team's ready to go, and I can't wait for another fun season. And, look, I know that your expectations are World Series or bust at this point. I understand that. I'm with you, right? Like, if they don't reach the NLCS, it's going to be a colossal disappointment. And I've said this a million times. I don't know how many more times the Phillies can rely on upsetting the Braves and for the Dodgers getting upset by another team, because the Padres did it 2 years ago. The Diamondbacks did it last year. Not that that ended up mattering because the Diamondbacks beat the Phillies, but you can't rely on that every single year. So they need to come out the gate, ready to play baseball. There can't be the slow months of April and May like we've been accustomed to the last couple of years. Come out the gate strong and sustain that as the season goes on. And this team, as we know, has the power to do it, the opportunity to do it. So we're looking forward to it. But just try to enjoy yourself as much as you can with this team. I mean, you're watching one of the better Phillies teams in Phillies franchise history. So the number to climb in to talk about it all is 610-632-0975. I understand if it's tough to get in. You can send me some tweets at asaltunas975. I put out a tweet on Friday letting you guys know that I will be down here, and I asked people, like, basically the mailbag. You see the reporters always do that. Oh, mailbag time. Send me in some questions. So I'll get into some of your topics as the show goes along today as well as tomorrow, because I'll be doing the show here tomorrow as well. But, I would love to hear from you guys, your excitement for this season, because there's a lot of it. I mean, it's great. I went down during the break. Brandon Marsh was signing autographs with some of the fans that are here because they do open the gates for people to get autographs, even though the team doesn't even play here today, which is something I love that the Phillies do. And credit to Brandon Marsh for taking the time and signing as many autographs as he could. And guys, the fans are just excited. Everybody's so excited. Everybody's ready for another season. It probably helps me down here a little bit, but everybody's so excited, and I can't wait for it. So we'd love to hear from you, 610-632-0975, as we await Scott Lauber, who's going to be joining us from the Inquirer, inquirer.com. Again, Jason Stark joined us earlier today. You'll be able to hear that on 97.5thefanatic.com. I know tonight we'll do a Fanatic Extra as well, which I've been doing a little bit the last couple of weeks. We play some of the stuff from the midday show before a Flyers or a Sixers game. So tonight you will hear some of the interviews that we did during the show today. And later on at 1 o'clock, we'll be reacting to whatever Jason Kelce has to say. So there'll still be some Eagles talk on the table, but a really Phillies-focused show. So, Tom, just let me know when Scott's ready to go, because I do not have a call screener back down here, and that's okay, because I'm staring off into the distance right now. I'm staring off into the beautiful views of Baycare Ballpark. I'm very, very lucky to be here. Sorry to rub it in your faces even more. Look, I'll keep on saying it. Just enjoy yourself this year. I'm just going to keep on saying it over and over again. Do yourself whatever you can. Do yourself a favor. and smack yourself in the face if you're getting too angry about a game in May or June. Obviously, if it's playoff implications, I understand series against the Braves will mean a lot more now that we want them to try to fight for the division and not just always have to be the underdog, even though it has worked out for the Phillies the last couple of years. But sitting back and enjoying yourself. So we're waiting Scott Lauber. Hopefully we can work something out here. Oh, sorry. Scott texted me just now, Tom. He's wondering if we can do 12 o'clock. All right, so we'll have Scott. So here's what we'll do. Let's pivot. I told you I wanted to do something every single segment. So do you have the Hoffman interview ready, Tom?
Yes, we're good.
All right, so Jeff Hoffman, I spoke with him before the show started, and I'm telling you right now, he already became one of my favorite players just based off of this conversation. So here's Phillies reliever. Take a listen to this because he's got a tremendous story getting to the Phillies in the first place and then how much, Red October means for him. So here's Jeff Hoffman earlier today. All right, I'm joined now by Phillies reliever Jeff Hoffman. Jeff, what's going on, man? How you doing?
I'm doing great.
Dude, how does it feel after last year? I mean, your story is incredible. We're going to get to your story about how you got onto the Phillies big league club and then through the playoffs and everything. But how does it feel going into a spring knowing that you're a big part of this team, dude, and a team that has World Series expectations?
Yeah, it's cool. Obviously, with the way things unfolded last year, my goal really last year was just to get to this point this year. Let's get to spring training with the same team. Let's really start to build a foundation here and get to know the people, and the bouncing around is just not something I wanted to do. So really happy that I got to this point.
Now, how you feeling? Because you ended up pitching a lot of innings down the stretch during the regular season, and in the playoffs, you were, it was you and Alvarado. You guys were the go-to guys. How's the arm feel at this point in the spring?
It feels great. I took a little bit of time off once we got home for the off season. But by the time I was ramping back up and getting back into it, getting my body back moving, everything was primed and ready to go. And it's a testament to the training staff here and the PT that I get done in the off season and all that good stuff. My strength coach in the off season. So yeah, they got me going, and I'm ready to go again.
So the Phillies fans are passionate, and trust me, we're going to talk about them before we get out of here too. But I don't know if everybody knows your story. I mean, trust me, once you do something in Philadelphia, you don't have to buy a beer in the city the rest of your life. But I think people need to know your story. What you went through, before you even got with the Phillies organization was fascinating. But then you had a moment with Bryce. Tell us your story as to how you got to the big league club.
Yeah, so I was in camp with Minnesota at the start of last year. Had an opt-out similar to the opt-out I had with Philly. Took my opt-out. They did not add me, so I was free. So the Phillies were actually the first team to call. And my agent, myself, my family, we loved the fact that they were the first team to call. They were citing reasons that, the things that I worked on in the off season, that's why they were interested in what I was doing. So that was important to us, and that was the reason we signed with them. So I went to AAA for the month and had my opt out at the end of the month, and they kind of came to me with this weird opportunity that kind of sounded it was off the wall. It really was. It was something that I had never heard of being done before. And the opportunity was to come over to Citizens Bank Park and to throw live BP to Bryce because Bryce didn't want to go on a rehab assignment.
Right.
So I was like, I got to call my agent. I have no idea. I have never heard of this happening mid-season before. So me and my agent talked it through, and he was like, honestly, your numbers aren't great in AAA, but your stuff is. So why not? So we went over and did it and threw really well and impressed Bryce, obviously, and Bryce, made it known that he thought that I should have been there on the team, and a couple weeks later I was.
And baseball's a funny thing, right? Your stuff's your stuff, right? You have good stuff. You mentioned your numbers weren't where you wanted them to be in AAA, but then you have that great moment where you're pitching to Bryce and you're impressing him. Man, when it just comes down to confidence, how much did that help you?
Yeah, no, it helped a ton. Because like you said, your stuff is your stuff. And I was throwing 98, 99, with a good slider, good split in AAA. Just the results weren't really there. but to do it on a bigger stage, you know, in front of Topper, in front of Dave, in front of, you know, all these front office, you know, Sam, everybody was there. Everybody had eyes on for that session. So that was kind of like, you know, that to me at that point, I've said it before, but that was like my World Series for last year. Like I was like, all right, if I can show out right here, and if I can prove myself right here in this scenario, then I will have a chance to be here. And you know, happy it turned out the way.
Listen, man, it worked out. You were incredible during the regular season, incredible during the playoffs. So let's talk about pitching the playoffs a little bit. Obviously, you guys didn't reach the goal of winning the World Series, which will be the goal this year. But man, you pitched a lot of big innings, big moments. What was that like pitching through? I mean, you're playing baseball your entire life, and you're wondering, this is the stage I want to get to. You pitched in the playoffs, man. Like, how great was that?
Yeah, it was like a dream, honestly. Yeah. It's something that you always have kind of like dreamed about when you're a kid, getting to play on that stage. You know, every night there's, you know, 2 games on, and you're one of the games, and you know the whole world is watching. So that was really, really cool. And to be able to do it with the guys that we did it with, and that's why I love so much that we have pretty much the same group back, because there really is something special about this group, and it's not lost on like what happened last year. Like we very much still have the burning desire to do what we feel like we have to do. Everybody has that sense of urgency. Everybody came into camp ready to roll, and no, it's really exciting that we get to, you know, kind of run it back and go and try to get it done what we wanted to get done last year.
What does it feel like in the clubhouse? Because we know how great of a group of guys you are. Like we've seen the videos of you guys in the clubhouse. We see how much fun you have, but there's also the business aspect of trying to get back to the World Series. So is it kind of walking that fine line of, all right, let's still have that fun that we have every single year, because that's part of who we are, but also, all right, we got a big goal to get to, and that's winning the World Series.
Yeah, I think you know, winning the World Series is a byproduct of those good vibes.
Right.
You know, I think teams that start pressing and teams that start, you know, squeezing the handle of the bat a little too tight, squeezing the ball a little bit too tight, those are the teams that kind of, you know, they'll go through their slides and their skids and never make it out. But the cool thing about our team is we take every night for what it is, which is just one game, and then no matter what happens that night, the next night's a totally new ball game. And I feel like we're really good at putting our best foot forward that specific night, and not carrying over, you know, bad at bats or bad outings from the night before. I think we're really it's a testament to our coaching staff too. We really are good at erasing and just going out and putting our best foot forward the next night.
Speaking with Phillies reliever Jeff Hoffman, what are you expecting for yourself this season? Because now you're at home, right? That was the first thing we got into when you first came on. You're with the Phillies. You know that going into the season. We also know that roles are a little bit different in a Rob Thompson-led bullpen. There's not like the set closing role. There's not the set setup role. So what are you expecting for yourself going into the season? Are you just kind of ready to go whenever your name's called?
Yeah, kind of a little bit of that. Just be ready to go whenever my name is called. But you know, I think the cool thing about our bullpen is we have a bunch of guys that can do a bunch of things. We have a lot of talent. You know, whether it's the young kid Orion or Alvy or Sir Soto, we have so many guys with closing experience, so many guys with experience pitching at the back end. I think that's going to be a really, really big strength for us. Not having to necessarily, you know, dictate, you know, this guy's our 9th inning guy, this guy's our 8th inning guy. I think we have so many different weapons that we can use in those situations, and you know, we can match up with lefties and righties. We can do whatever. We have the lefties, we have the righties, we have the high octane stuff, we have the funkiness, we have all of it. So you know, I think that's going to be a really big weapon for Topper, and you know, we're excited. Whatever way he decides to use us all, we're all excited to do whatever.
All right, before I let you go, I'm going to give you the chance to win the hearts of every Phillies fan. You got to tell me what it was like sitting in the bullpen, watching your team play at Citizens Bank Park
Yeah.
in October,
Yeah.
but then also your opportunities. Like when you're stepping on the mound, there's got to be a major adrenaline rush pitching in front of those crazy fans.
Yeah, no, I think the thing that really hit me was walking out to the bullpen as the game was about to start. Seeing the sea of red, kind of seeing just like how unified everybody was in the stadium and will be again. That was something that I'm getting the chills, the goosebumps, like just sitting here thinking about it. But something that I didn't even think that was a thing in Major League Baseball. Like I could see that being a thing in, EPL or even NFL games or, whatever. But in a Major League Baseball stadium for a fan base to have that type of, how do I say, like,
passion, man.
Yeah, passion and just like that kind of impact on the players on the field and the way the atmosphere is man, I would not like to be a visiting team coming into play in an environment like that. But man, I love it. I miss it. I can't wait to do it again. So
yeah, I mean, Aaron Nola said when he first made his extension that he loves pitching in Red October, right? That he's addicted to it, right? So I imagine that's all you guys at this point.
It is addicting. It's something like I've never seen before, and it's like I said, I'm so excited to do it again.
Well, we can't wait, man. We wish you luck. We're happy that you're here. We're excited for another great season of Phillies baseball, and I'm sure we'll be talking again down the road.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Jeff. I appreciate it, man. There he is, Jeff Hoffman. There he was. All right. Told you. He's already my favorite Philly. Sorry, Bryce. You got to take a step aside. I mean, it was awesome. It was a great story. That story, we'll talk about it more coming up next, but the story of how he's struggling in AAA and then Bryce needs a pitcher to pitch to him with Major League experience because he doesn't want to do a rehab assignment. And he's so good that Bryce is like, dude, why isn't this guy on the Major League roster? So we'll talk more about that. It was an incredible story and just an incredible interview. Love to have him on. That will be podcasted on 975thefanatic.com as well. We'll continue the Phillies conversation as we're here for the next day and a half because we're midway through the show already. I can't believe it's flying by. Scott Lauber of the Inquirer, Inquirer.com, will be joining us next. He was supposed to come on 11:30, but obviously very busy after the press conference of Zack Wheeler and Dave Dombrowski announced today that Zack Wheeler got the 3-year extension. Big money. But that means we have big expectations. So we'll talk to Scott next. We'd love to get some more of your calls at 610-632-0975. And look, I just want to have a nice baseball conversation with you guys today because I'm in a baseball mood. I'm looking at an empty ballpark. There's something beautiful about an empty ballpark. We'll talk about more of that next right here, 97.5 The Fanatic.
Fanatic Sports Update.
Wheeler gets paid. I'm Tom Alborn. This update is brought to you by Wendy's. With Wendy's breakfast 2 for $3 Biggie Bundles, you can choose
Special with Andrew Salchunas live from Clearwater, Florida. This is 97.5 The Fanatic at 97.5thefanatic.com.
Yep, we are back live from Baycare Ballpark here in now sunny Clearwater, Florida. Beautiful sunny Clearwater, Florida. About 71 degrees. Wind blowing out. Maybe that's why Pache was going yard every single time. Wind blowing out right to left. He was just raking. So I'm already Christian Pache is my starting outfielder, and Jeff Hoffman's my favorite player on the Phillies. That's basically what I've come down to so far in my almost 2 hours doing the show down here. So we got Scott Lauber of the Inquirer coming up around 12 o'clock tentatively, because at some point here in the broadcast booth I'll be joined by Larry Bowa. I was watching Larry. Larry still got it, dude. He was hanging out by the cages. Yeah, man. He was hanging out by the cages. He was showing some quick twitch stuff with one of the players. He was talking to a bunch of the players, right? So he's a hitting guru. So he's still he was in uniform and everything. He's ready to go. I love Bo. It's just absolutely incredible. So if Scott's not on at 12, it will be Larry. But somebody will be joining us at 12 o'clock. I promise you that. All right. So I put out a tweet on Friday. I think it was. I'm trying to read the date correctly. When was March 1st? That was Friday. I put out a tweet on Friday about some mailbag questions that I would love people to talk about that we're going to react to. So Carter checked in wondering if the Phillies start the year with a six-man rotation, if Turnbull or McGarry or Abel continue to look good. I don't think Abel's going to start with the big league club. I think he'll probably be like a AA or a AAA, but we could maybe see him at some point this year. Like, he's impressed me. His stuff's impressed me so far this spring. The fastball's got a lot of life to it. His slider's nasty. You can see why they drafted him as high as they did. So I think we see him at some point with the big league club, especially as the season goes on. You know that somebody at some point is going to miss some time. It's just typical. It's Major League Baseball. It's going to happen. But I don't know if they do the six-man rotation to start. It is something that the Phillies have done at times in the year. I wonder. I'll be curious to find out if I speak with Cotham or Rob Thompson. We're hoping to get somebody on from the coaching staff tomorrow. I would love to know how they're going to continue to handle the pitchers in spring training, because if you remember last year, Nola's deepest outing was only 4 innings last year in the spring. So guys were still stretching the arms out come opening day. They weren't ready to go 6, 7, 8 innings to start the season, which is fine. It's an approach to take to try to keep guys healthy come playoff time, which, let's face it, it has worked. Zack Wheeler's been healthy. Aaron Nola's been healthy. I know Wheeler missed that month 2 years ago before they make the World Series push, but you saw how dominant he was. So maybe they'll do a six-man rotation at some point. I think that's something that they have to sort of see how the schedule works out. Remember, we've seen post-All-Star game them rework the rotation a little bit so that guys are getting an extra day of rest. The Phillies are very smart when it comes to that. So I don't know if they start the year at the six-man rotation. I don't expect Abel to be on the Major League roster to start, or McGarry. I think more highly of Abel than McGarry at this point. The Turnbull thing's interesting. We had Stark on, and Stark was talking about how impressive he was the other day, and he was. He had good stuff. And that was an interesting signing, right? It was a low-risk, I guess, high reward, if you want to call it that, when the Phillies picked him up, because he's a guy that was once a very high prospect in Major League Baseball. He had Tommy John surgery, and last year was his first year back post-Tommy John. And look, he struggled with Detroit. He did, and that's why he was available, and the Phillies ended up getting him. And we'll see. I mean, it's spring, right? You don't want to make too much of numbers in spring, both for hitters or pitchers. You don't want to make too much of it, but if the stuff's there, then that's something to be excited about. So Jason Stark was really impressed with what Turnbull had to do. And they need guys to eat up innings, because you'll have Wheeler, Nola, Suarez, Walker, and Sanchez. But early on they're not going to be pitching that deep in a game. So I wonder if spot starts will be a thing early on in the season. It's different baseball now, right? Like, we've seen that as the years have gone on. Baseball has changed a little bit, where it's not guys ready to go 7, 8 innings come opening day. Right, you're not going to have complete games on opening day. It's guys that are going to be going 5 or 6 innings, max maybe, because they want to stretch out the arms a little bit. Scorpio Lord checks in, Tom, that he's still pissed about last year's loss to the Diamondbacks. He says it's the worst loss in Philly since the Eagles losing to the Bucks in 2002. He thinks there needs to be more pressure on this team this year, similar to the Sixers the last few years. And if they don't reach the goal, Tom, I'm out. Like, come on, don't do this to yourself. I'm telling you, you are watching one of the greater Phillies teams, right? You are like, you look at it, you just look around the diamond and you're watching all-stars all over the place. And I know they haven't always been an all-stars. Like, I know Trey Turner wasn't an all-star last year with the Phillies, but you expect as much this year. I can't do the whole I'm out if they don't reach the goal. Like, that's sad to me that we're saying this. He responded to me on Friday, March 1st. Friday, March 1st, he's already saying that if they don't reach a certain goal, that he's out. And I just can't do that. I don't think it's fair to the team.
I was talking myself into teams with Tommy Joseph and Aaron Altair, man. Like, I'm going to enjoy this Phillies team as much as I can. Look, if they get there and don't accomplish that goal, that's a whole different story. But being out on a team that has Bryce Harper in his prime, Trey Turner, all these guys, Zack Wheeler, Aaron Nola, that's tough for me to say. But as I told you earlier, not surprised someone said that already.
And Mike Vito, who's engineering the show here, he just wrote a note to me. We waited 10 years for playoff baseball. We went through a freaking decade of a playoff drought. And
now we're out after 2 years.
Yeah, exactly.
Playoff baseball.
Come on, we can't do that. We're gonna drive ourselves crazy. Like, that's why I keep on saying this. We're 2 hours into the show. I keep on pushing the message of, I know the World Series expectations are there. I have them too. I will be disappointed, not just as a fan, but I'll be angry if they do not reach the NLCS again, because we saw it in the 2008, 2009, right? They win the World Series, lose the World Series, then they lose in the NLCS, and they lose in the NLDS, and then they lose in and then they don't make the playoffs, right? Like, we saw that step back every single year, and you don't want to see that this year. If they don't make it to the NLCS, it's another step back. I get it. I get the expectations are there, but we are watching talent. Like you said, maybe we didn't talk ourselves into those teams winning World Series, the Tommy Joseph and Aaron Altairs, but you talked yourself into those guys being cogs of a team moving forward. Like, I was never a big Tommy Joseph fan, but I liked what I saw out of Aaron Altair, right? Like, I was like, all right, this is a guy that could be a legit outfielder for this team for the next 5-6 years, and he wasn't, and he's not even in Major League Baseball anymore. He's in the KBO still, if I'm not mistaken, right? Like, we talked ourselves into these guys. Like, Odubel Herrera, who not only is a terrible human being, but he was a headache on the field. Like, he was such a pain in the ass to watch play baseball. Like, I don't have to worry about that anymore, right? Like, I have legit talent, and I know there's still going to be some times, like, I know I think about Brandon Marsh at times where I'm like, all right, like, I hold on one second, I'm confused. What am I reading here, Mike? Does he want to go? Oh, I'm sorry, jeez.
Why are you showing him a text?
So Scott's coming on at 12. As long as Bo is not here, Scott's going to be coming on at 12. I look at this team and I go, all right, there's a lot of freaking talent here, and we don't have those headaches. There's going to be times where Brandon Marsh still needs to work through some things. Like, I think he's a good ball player, but I don't think as highly as a lot of fans do. But I think he's a good ball player. He's a an A outfielder, maybe not A+. He's an A outfielder. When he's hot, the guy rakes. I mean, you saw him in the playoffs. He was actually one of the more consistent hitters for the Phillies during the playoffs. You saw the NLCS. You saw how guys got cold. Brandon Marsh actually was hitting the ball pretty well in the playoffs. So that's stuff that, I'm excited for. Everybody can contribute on this team. Like, we've barely talked about Alec Boehm. He's a guy that's probably not going to be hitting 30 home runs. Like, I don't think we're ever going to get to that, but he's a guy that can drive in runs, and he's not even one of the star names. Like, I know the daycare has gotten a little bit older because they've been here for a couple of years, but you still have that young talent that is better than what you had during that 10-year playoff drought. So I almost, I feel bad. I'm not even angry, but I feel bad that this guy on social media is telling me that if they don't reach a certain goal, I'm out. Like, that's just awful. Like, I can't believe it. But if you feel that way, I would love to hear from you, 610-632-0975, because I know I ran a poll about that. I'll try to find it at some point during the show. We ran a poll on the midday count about whether or not this team has reached Wake Me Up When status, which is what the Sixers have, right? I mean, everybody right now at the Sixers is Wake Me Up When. So here was the poll back on February 15th. Have the Phillies reached the territory of Wake Me Up for the playoff run in terms of expectations for you? It finished 50-50. So 50% of you, so that Scorpio Lord guy on social media is not the only one. There's 50% of you that goes, yeah, it's Wake Me Up When. And that's sad because this is a really good baseball team that I just want to sit back and enjoy, man. That's sad, Tom. All right, we're still waiting for Scott Lauber. We'll get to him.
That is sad. Extremely sad, if you ask me.
Yeah, like, we got a team that could potentially win 95 games. And you know what's funny? What do you think Dodgers fans are saying? The Dodgers have choked the last 2 years in the divisional round of the series, of the playoffs. What do you think Braves fans are saying? They've choked. I know we love the Phillies. The Phillies probably should have won those series. The Braves were the team. They were the favorites in that series. And I remember I had Buster Olney last year that said the Phillies, like he predicted it back in June that the Phillies were going to beat the Braves in the second round of the playoffs. He predicted it because of the way the Phillies team is set up for the playoffs. And you know that the Braves are going to try to work on that kind of stuff. That's why they bring in a guy like Chris Sale. But damn, I mean, you think about it. How do you think their fans are acting? They've fallen short of the goal than the Phillies have. And the Phillies have been underdogs in all these series. So just try to enjoy yourself a little bit. 50% of people saying, wake me up when they reach the playoffs. No! Have fun! All right, joining us now on the Comcast Business Hotline from the Inquirer, Inquirer.com, does a tremendous job. I always love hearing him on the best show ever, but he's taking some time joining us today as I'm broadcasting live from Baycare Ballpark here in sunny Clearwater, Florida. That's Scott Lauber. Scott, how you doing today, man?
Doing well. How are you, Andrew?
I'm doing great. Thanks for coming on. I know it became a busy morning for you all of a sudden with the Zack Wheeler extension. Would love to get your thoughts on Wheeler's 3-year deal extension.
Yeah, it did become a busy morning. I just it's funny. I was home for a few days and wandered in here today and thought, all right, I'll have a nice lazy first day back, and bang, thrown right back into the fire. So no, there is a lot going on. So Zack Wheeler, as everyone knows, right, signed a 3-year extension that kicks in 25, so he'll be under contract with the Phillies through 2027. And we just heard from Zack, and I spent some time chatting with his agent and with John Middleton. And what's interesting to me about this deal is, yeah, it's $42 million a year. Yes, it's the fourth largest average annual salary for a starting pitcher. But Zack Wheeler's 33. He'll be 34 in June, at the end of June. And this is the kind of contract lengthwise, term-wise, that you typically see a pitcher who's 37, 38 sign. Verlander, Scherzer, they signed their big contracts, their $43 million contracts when they were much older. And what I came to find out, and what I'm going to be writing about today, is that Zack Wheeler only wanted a short term. He doesn't want to pitch until, in his words, until he's old. He wants to pitch into his middle 30s and then walk away from the game. So his agent was telling me, I don't think after 3 years he's going to go. This probably is his last contract if he has to guess. And what Wheeler wants to do is retire at the peak of his powers, so to speak. And he's been a better pitcher from ages 30 to 33 than he was from 27 to 30. He's aging backwards a little bit. He thinks he's got, 3 or 4 more years at that level, at this level. And that's what he wants to do. He wants to kind of give it 3 or 4 more years at his peak level for the Phillies, try to win as many championships as he can, and then walk away from the game.
I had Jason Stark on earlier today, and I was asking him from the national perspective just how much people realize how good Zack Wheeler's been, because he doesn't seem to be like that household name in Major League Baseball, right? Like you have guys like Scherzer and Verlander who you're talking about. There's guys all over, ESPN, all over all the MLB Network, and Zack Wheeler doesn't seem to be that kind of guy, but he's pitched just as good as those pitchers. Why do you think that is, Scott?
He sure has. I mean, and I agree. I think that there's probably doesn't get enough national attention as he should. But look, I mean, say what you want about like modern metrics, and they all have their flaws, right? But if you judge a player's value based on WAR, and you look at both versions of WAR, Fangraphs and Baseball Reference, he has the highest WAR of any pitcher in the sport since he signed this contract with the Phillies for the 2020 season. So, I mean, value-wise, he's been as good as any of them. So I don't know exactly why it is, because the Phillies have achieved some sort, a sort of national prominence in getting to the World Series 2 years ago and back to the playoffs last year. And you would think that on that stage, the guy would get the kind of credit that he's deserved. But I don't know. I'm not quite sure why it is. I do have some theories as to why he's gotten better with age. I think that one thing is that he's been healthier with the Phillies than he was with the Mets earlier in his career. He dealt with a lot of injury issues early. He's figured out ways to stay healthy. I think his relationship with their pitching coach, Caleb Cotham, they've really hit it off since Cotham got here and they joined up. Wheeler keeps adding things. Last year he added a sweeper. This year he's looking to add a changeup, or looking to throw his changeup more. He's always looking to tweak and learn. And early in his career, he was definitely a thrower with a hard fastball who tried to get everybody out by overpowering them. I think as he's aged, he's learned, he's got to figure out other ways to get guys out. And that's to his credit that he works at that and he figures it out. So I think he's become a lot more of a pitcher in the last 3 or 4 years than he was before. And that's another thing that I think gives the Phillies confidence that, especially because Wheeler wanted a short term, the sense I get is that, like, Dave Dombrowski would have signed him to a longer-term deal if he wanted a longer-term deal. He's only, like I said, he's only 33. He'll be 34 this season. This deal gets him to age 37, I guess, and that's still not old these days for pitching. So that's what he wants. That's where he wants to get to in his career, and then he wants to go do other things. So, I think it's a good situation for them because they feel like he can maintain this level of performance for a good deal of this contract.
Speaking of Scott Lauber, the Inquirer, Inquirer.com. Scott, I'm doing the show from the home radio booth, so I have a perfect view of the batting cages. And I'm sitting here, and I'm watching Christian Pache rake. I mean, everything's either going over the wall or into the gaps. And it made me think, how come every time we talk outfield, it's Castellanos in right, it's Brandon Marsh, and it's Johan Rojas. And I feel like Pache's almost not talked about much, and he might need to, by product of Marsh's injury, be on the opening day roster and maybe be a starter. But why is he not talked about as much as some of the other players? Because it looks like he's got some good stuff, and we saw it at times last year during the regular season.
It's a great question, Andrew. I think I'd take it further. I would say, what's the difference between Christian Pache and Johan Rojas?
Right.
And why do we think of Johan Rojas as, competing for, or the favorite to be the starting center fielder and not Christian Pache? And I would argue that the only real difference is that Pache's been at this a little bit longer. Remember, right, he was a top prospect with the Braves. He was supposed to be the next Andrew Jones. Mm-hmm. Then he got traded over to Oakland in the Matt Olson deal. He was kind of the centerpiece of that deal and got beat out for a job last spring in Oakland, right, the worst team in baseball.
Yep.
Couldn't make that team on opening day. So, like, Pache's had these camps where he's come in and had to win a job. He's been Rojas a few times and hasn't done it. Now, maybe he's a little bit more of a late bloomer, right? And maybe, like, this is the year, or, maybe he was on that path last year until he got hurt. He had some opportunities to play middle of the season and was hitting the ball pretty well. And you were like, oh, maybe it's starting to click for Christian Pache. And then he got hurt and missed a lot of time. So, I mean, I think the difference is that he's been in Rojas' shoes before. This is like Rojas' first chance to really make an opening day roster and prove that he's the guy. But I wonder whether if the next few weeks go the way the last week has gone, where Pache's really hit the ball well, I do wonder whether that's the question we're asking. Like, how much of a difference really is there between Pache and Rojas? And should that be the competition? Who should be the center fielder rather than, should Pache be competing with Jake Cave for the last spot on the team? So we'll see how it evolves. But, I take your point. I think it's a good one that, maybe there's not a ton of difference between these two guys.
What are some of the other big competitions this spring as we continue to go toward opening day for the Phillies? I mean, there's been some arms that have been impressive, but what are some of the top competitions that you're keeping an eye on?
There's really not many. It's that last bench spot. So it's Rojas. Like, I think Rojas is kind of going to become more of the story over the next couple of weeks, and not just like, can he string the hits together? I think it's how the at-bats look. I think it's a lot like when he got called up in the first place last July. That was not supposed to be a permanent thing. He was getting called up to fill in for Pache while he was out, and then they were going to send Rojas back to the minors because they thought he would look overwhelmed or overmatched, I should say, by Major League pitching. He never looked overmatched by Major League pitching, not until the postseason, and it turned into a permanent promotion for the rest of the year. So I think they're kind of back to that point where, what do the at-bats look like? Not necessarily does he go 4 for 4 every day he plays, but, is he hanging in there against good pitchers? What does he look like against tough righties? What does he look like? Can he get a bunt down? Can he do things at the bottom of the order that you want your number 9 hitter to do? Or does he look like he needs more time in AAA? So that, to me, is the number one story. And then the outfield picture kind of goes from there. Because if he's not on the team, Pache and Cave probably both make the team. If Rojas does make the team, it's going to be one or the other, Pache or Cave. And then, we're talking about that the last week of camp. And then the other thing is, there's probably a spot or two at the end of the bullpen, Connor Brogdon, who's going to be the long man? Will it be Spencer Turnbull? Will it be Dylan Covey? I mean, these are things that real baseball heads are into.
Right.
I think most fans are just like, wake me when we get to
Hey, Turnbull looked good the other day, Scott. He looked good.
He looked great. And, he's important because if somebody gets hurt in the top 5, and I'm not, if Wheeler or Nola get hurt, that's big trouble, obviously.
Right,
But if Walker should go down for a while, or if Suarez goes down for a while, or Sanchez, you're going to need guys to fill in at the back of the rotation. And Turnbull's like their most experienced guy back there. So it's Turnbull, it's Covey, it's Nick Nelson, who's pitching today over in Dunedin. It's that group. So there's that, what does the pitching depth look like? But also just that last spot in the bullpen, and how do you go about it? Turnbull's got this weird, because of service time, he's got to agree to going to AAA, and he hasn't pitched much the last few years because of injuries. Will he agree to do that if push comes to shove? And so things like that, just real back of the roster things that are important, but are not going to be like, headline stealers.
Right. I would love your information on this. Based off of what you've been talking to with Rob Thompson and the members of the Phillies. I'm curious. How are they handling the starting pitchers this spring? I remember last year, I think Nola's deepest outing in spring was only about 4 innings, and I think the mindset was to keep the guys healthy throughout the regular season, which, hey, credit to them, it has worked, but there's the beginning of the season where now they're not going that deep into games. Are they still following that same mindset this spring?
I think it's individual. I think it's based on the guy. So, Aaron Nola is a machine, right? I mean, it doesn't matter whether it's the middle of February or the middle of October. That dude takes the ball every 5th day, goes out there and he pitches. And he never misses any time, and he's never hurt. And, wind him up and let him go, and he make his 33 starts like clockwork. And so, I think he seems to me to be on more of a normal 5-day, raring to go. He's lined up. I think he's lined up for opening day, and just mark it down and go from there. Now with a younger pitcher, like a Sanchez, you might not be on that certain of a schedule yet. I mean, he's been pitching on a fairly regular basis. So has Suarez. The two that have not are Walker and Wheeler for different reasons. Walker's had a little bit of, I think it was, I wasn't here the other day, but I think it was described as some soreness or some stiffness or something like that. So we'll watch that situation as it unfolds. And Wheeler, Wheeler's wife had a baby last week. He was out away for a few days. It's been a hell of a week for Zack Wheeler, let me tell you. He told us that he's pitching tomorrow. He's going to pitch a couple of innings tomorrow in a game. So I would expect that from there he'll be turned loose on a normal schedule. So, I think Wheeler, Nola, those guys, they don't worry about as much. The other guys, they build up a little bit differently. But, I do think they want to put the foot on the pedal a little bit more with Ranger Suarez this year. They think that they can do it a little with Sanchez because he's at a point in his career where he's can be treated like a regular starter. So I think they want their guys when spring training is over to be built up. Now it's not unusual. I know Nola likes to from past years. Nola's always said it's my second to last start where that's the one where I really put my foot down on the pedal and try to get deeper into a game. And then he tapers back a little bit in his last one, and it served him well. Other guys like to just go right through, build, right to opening day. So it's kind of individual. It's kind of it's kind of tailored to the guy, but they also don't want these guys to still have the training wheels on when the season starts. They want them to be able to be full-time regular starting pitchers.
Great stuff, Scott. I appreciate you coming on today. Welcome back. I'm sorry that your first day back in Clearwater was a rough one, man. It was a busy day. You couldn't just sit back.
No, are you kidding? It's a layup. It's a layup.
yeah, exactly. That's a good point. The content speaks for itself. Thanks for coming on, Scott. I appreciate it.
Sure thing. Anytime.
There he is. There's Scott Lauber, the Inquirer, Inquirer.com. We'll be joined, hopefully next segment, at some point this hour, by the legend, Larry Bowa. So hopefully we'll speak to Larry next. We still have the Darick Hall interview that I recorded earlier today that we will play on the show at some point. And also, don't forget, coming up at 1 o'clock, Jason Kelce will be speaking to the media. He is going to have a press conference. My guess is of a retirement, but we'll find out exactly from the words of Jason Kelce himself coming up at 1 o'clock. We'll continue your Phillies conversation next right here, 97.5 The Fanatic.
Fanatic Sports Update.
Decision coming for Kelce at 1 o'clock. I'm Tom Alborn. This update is brought to you by
start, but they're not playing here. They're playing in Dunedin today, which is basically the town over. And I'll give you that lineup. Interesting, we had Scott Lauber on. He said that Wheeler's supposed to pitch tomorrow, so we'll be doing the show from the outfield tomorrow, so I'll be able to watch Wheels get some spring training action. By the way, 12 o'clock hour brought to us by Service First Heating and Air Conditioning. Get 0% financing for 72 months and a $500 rebate when you purchase a complete heating and cooling system from Service First. Learn more at servicefirsthvac.com. And I apologize to our friends at Winner Nation. They brought us our 10 o'clock hour. Winner Nation, take advantage of Winner Nation's 50% off sale on all style windows, plus make no down payment with no payments and no interest for 12 full months. Call 866-90-NATION. So, coming up in a few minutes, we'll play Darick Hall. So, here's the deal. We're waiting Larry Bowa. Whenever he gets here, he gets here. It's Florida, man. You move to the beat of your own drum. So, Larry's going to join us at some point this hour. And then Jason Kelce speaks at 1 o'clock. So, originally, I'd planned to play Darick Hall after the Jason Kelce press conference. But, look, if Jason Kelce announces his retirement, right, his press conference is at 1. We break around 1:12. We back around 1:20. We got 30 minutes of programming before we close up shop and hand things over to the best show ever. I think it's right to give 30 minutes to Jason Kelce with you guys on the phones and Tom back at the studio and me talking about Jason Kelce. I think we owe that to him. The All-Pro and the legend in Eagles history, one of the greatest centers, not just in Eagles history, but to play the NFL. So we'll give Jason Kelce some more time, especially if he announces a retirement. But earlier today, I told you we played Jeff Hoffman. I spoke with him before the show. But I also spoke with Darick Hall. And he's got – and, look, his role's different this year. Part of me feels bad, right? I remember last year I was here with Anthony, and he was fired up, man. And look, he's fired up now too. But, last year it was the role of, he's going to play some first base, he'll play some DH, and he'll bounce around, whereas now it's a little bit different this year because Bryce Harper's now your everyday first baseman. Remember, when Rhys Hoskins goes down, Darick Hall's your first baseman to start the season. But I was joined by Darick Hall earlier today. We talked about his role with the team this season and recovering from the injuries that he sustained last year. So here he is earlier today. I'm joined now by Phillies infielder Darick Hall. Darick, what's going on, man? How you doing?
Oh, good. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
I'm glad. You feeling all right? You got the nasals. You got the nasals.
Yeah, that rain got me the other day.
Yeah, it'll happen. All right, so look, this is an exciting time for you, right? Last year, it's changing for you, right? Mm-hmm. So last year, you go into the season, you're the first baseman because unfortunately Rhys gets hurt, and then unfortunately you get hurt during the regular season. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling a lot better. I definitely played through some pain last year, more than I thought, to be honest. Because when I took time off this offseason, I was like, wow, that feels a lot better.
Yeah,
It was just really stiff, and it seemed like when I hit a ball bad, that vibration would kind of hammer it, And that was just something, like at the time I was in so much pain at first, and then I got to where I could swing a bat and it was a little bit better. But when I took that time off, I was like, whoa, this is how it's supposed to feel.
Yeah. Well, that's good. So I'm glad that you're feeling better. So what's your mindset right now? Because that's a tough thing that went for you. I mean, you're the first baseman last year when Rhys goes down, and obviously Bryce is playing first base this season. So where are you at mentally? Like how are you keeping yourself up and ready to go?
Yeah, so to me, I had to take some time off, obviously let my thumb heal. So I'm off to a little bit slower start than I'd like, but to me, I need to get caught up offensively in camp. I feel really good about defense. And to me, like, my job right now is to be of service in some way, whether it be pinch hit, spot start, if it's, wherever Topper thinks he can use me, if maybe we got a stretch of a lot of righties coming up, something like that. I don't know if there's necessarily a starting job on paper at all. So it's fighting for that bench spot or that spot start. But, and that's just kind of like buying into the team, right? It's like, sure, I'd like to be a starter, but at the same time, it's like I buy into the fact that I can be of use, right? My power, my bat, and I want that to be used in any way that's possible, right?
And that's the beauty of this roster, right? You have, like, Bryce could play DH for a couple of games, right? And so that could give you your opportunity to play first base. Or Kyle might need to take a day off from DH, and then 100%. You can play DH that day. So how are you going to keep yourself ready? I mean, that's the biggest thing. It's one thing if you know that you're penciled in the lineup every single day. What's something that you are doing this spring and you will be doing during the regular season? Just be ready whenever your name's called.
Yeah, so spring, it's the same routine, right? You get your at-bats. You're in there often enough. You're getting your work in. Now, depending on the role in the season, let's say, that bench spot is open. that's something you got to do a really good job in the cage of hitting machine, like staying involved mentally, paying attention to the hitters. And to me, that's something that I need to learn and be better at, because I'm a guy, I've always played like every day. So just something to, lean on the coaches for too, the hitting guys to kind of guide me there. But I think it's about staying involved, staying active, and buying into like, hey, this, when I do get in at bat, it's a big deal. It's not just like, oh, I hadn't played for a few days, I was a little rusty. It's like your job is to try and make it happen any way possible, when you get in there.
Speaking of Darick Hall, now, how exciting is it for you? Because I know you want to play, right? Like, trust me, I get it. You want to play, but you're also part of a team that has World Series expectations, right? I mean, you were just in the NLCS last year, the World Series the year before that. How exciting is it for you as a young player going into the season going, man, I could be a big part of a pretty damn good team?
Yeah, no, what's going on here is special, and it's like I've always, bought into the team aspect, and like any which way I can be used, in the past it was every day. Now it looks a little different, right? And that your roles change, especially as you get older and different teams and different guys, right? So to me, this is the most exciting time I've ever been in pro ball, like in professional baseball, right? Just like teams doing really well. We're on a spot to, get to the World Series, win a World Series, right? And see what happened the last couple of years. So it's super exciting, man. Just showing up, feeling the energy every day. Like, guys know each other. There's nothing that's out of the ordinary. It's just getting in here, getting your work in, just getting ready to go.
Yeah, I was talking to Jeff Hoffman on before I had you on, and he was talking about just the cohesiveness of this group, right? And how everybody knows each other. It's a big run-it-back type of feel. You obviously have a couple of new faces coming in, as you do every single year in Major League Baseball, but how much does that mean for a team to see similar faces in a building going into another season?
Yeah, I think we have a lot of really good apples, right? So it's easier to get people to buy into something that's good than, maybe say the dynamic isn't good and people come in and maybe they feel like they've got to impact the team in a certain way, versus the group here is good. And, we also get good guys. I think they bring in good people and good players, so that's why the dynamic keeps going on.
Now, what are some of the things that you're working on? I remember last year when I had you on, when you came on with Anthony, who I used to work with last year, you worked on hitting lefties a lot more. So what's some of the things, and you did a great job at it last year until unfortunately you got hurt. So what's one of the things that you're focusing on a lot this spring?
Yeah, to me, it's like I said, just getting caught up a little bit. I did take some time off in the winter. I swung in December, did machine in January. I'm a guy I usually hit the whole time, right? So it's just getting back in that competitive mindset, grind out at bats, swinging at good pitches. And that's what I'm focused on. I feel really good about my swing. I felt like even though I was hurt last year, I made some strides. Like, I did some cool stuff in AAA. I hit lefties really well. OPS better against lefties and righties, which was, a big turnaround compared to 22. So to me, it's just getting that confidence going early and seeing where it goes. I feel good about my swing. A lot of it's just that cognitive part, right? Being on time, swinging the good pitches, seeing it again. And that's what I'm more buying in than working on a specific thing is, once I feel like that is going, we'll understand where to go. But I like where I'm at. The guys like where I'm at. And I think it's just one of those things about making it happen.
Now, one of the big things that everybody's been talking about this spring, and after the season unfortunately came to an end in the NLCS, was the addiction of playing in Red October. Aaron Nola said it after he signed his extension. He talked about how he's addicted to playing Red October baseball for the Phillies. I would love you just to give your experience from where you were watching what it was like at Citizens Bank Park in October, and just how much you guys want to get back to that.
Yeah, it feels like the Coliseum. When you're a kid, that's what you talk about or you hear about in school, and you're like, man. But when you're there and you just got that many people, the city come alive behind you, and the yelling and just everything, it's so cool. It feels like a surreal atmosphere, right? I remember just leaving the park every day and my ears would just be ringing, and it's like, wow, so I think it is addicting, right? It's like you get a lot of adrenaline. There's a lot of energy, and it's just something that is really cool to experience.
Does it truly feel different at Citizens Bank Park compared to the other stadiums?
Yeah. You can feel that people care and they love the team. They're not just there to watch baseball.
Right, exactly. I mean? They're there to root you guys in. I mean,
yeah.
it's a family feel. The Phillies have been around for a long time. Philadelphia's been around for a long time.
That's
so
right.
It's a cohesive group, not just within the clubhouse. It's also the 45,000 screaming fans you have at Citizens Bank Park.
if they didn't care, they'd still have Dollar Dog Night. You know, they get mad and they fire those things on the field. You know.
Listen, man. Look, you know how to speak to the fans. They want those dollar dogs, man. But
That's
look,
right.
it's going to be a lot of fun. Darick, listen, I appreciate it, man. Good luck to you this season. Whatever that role may be, we're rooting for you, man. Trust me, you're a fan favorite. I do this every day for a living, right? I talk to a lot of people. You're a fan favorite in Philadelphia. People want to see you succeed, so we're looking forward to it.
Thank you.
Man. Yeah, of course.
I
Thank you.
appreciate it.
There he is, Darick Hall. All right, that was the Darick Hall interview from earlier today. You'll be able to hear that again on 97.5thefanatic.com. But I'm joined now by a legend and apparently an incredible golfer, too. One Larry Bowa. Larry, what's going on, man? How you doing?
Not much. Enjoying spring training and take away the incredible golfer. It was just pure luck, and it was my first. People said, was that your first? I said first and last. So I don't,
the video was great.
it was unbelievable. I didn't realize that many people were watching because it was a scramble, and we had a bunch of foursomes that were hung up, and they were all watching. And I remember Trey Turner, who hits the ball pretty good. He says, Bo, just get on the green, and then me and Stotty will go for the flag.
Oh, okay.
I said, okay. So when I hit it, I said, okay, it's on the green, and I see Marshy jumping up like a field goal sign, like it's good. And I went, oh, he's just pulling my leg. And then Trey had one of those finders. He says, the ball's in the hole. I said, get out of here. And I went up there, and the ball's in the hole. So
better feeling, winning a World Series or hitting a hole-in-one?
You know, I love the hole-in-one, but winning a World Series, we've only got two. And we won the very first one. The World Series is something that you work so hard for your whole life. And then, you know, there's got to be a little luck involved. You got to be at the right place at the right time. Things got to happen positively. So I'd say the World Series is the ultimate.
Of course it is. So this is another season where that's what we're going to be talking about a lot, right? It's going to be World Series conversations, and, you know, people are excited for it and expecting it. What have you seen so far? I know you've been down here for a little bit. What have you seen so far to make you think, yeah, we could do this again?
I love the chemistry of this team. I mean, you bring in a guy like Merrifield. Usually when a guy comes in, it takes a while to make adjustments to the clubhouse. He blended right in. You know, you got to take your hat off to Dave Dombrowski for putting that kind of ball club together. Everybody's on the same page. This team's a lot hungrier, I think, because they've 2 years now. Hey, we almost won it against Houston. Last year, to me, was a disappointment because nothing against Arizona. They have some good athletes. We should have beat that team, and then we could have rolled the dice and see how we made out against Texas. But the other thing that's going in our favor, the two teams that won the World Series, it was leap year both years.
Yeah.
This is leap year.
That's good.
I'm just
That's
saying.
good.
So hopefully
It's
the
in the
third time
stars
here.
right now.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
it's
is. If we
incredible.
can stay healthy, I like everything about our team. I really do.
Yeah, how's this team different from the last 2 years? You know, you mentioned Merrifield coming in, but you also have a guy like Trey Turner who had the slow start last year, but this is now year two. How much different? Because it seems like there's a lot of similar faces, which is a good thing, but there's still a difference to this team.
Well, the one big difference that people don't want to talk about, or at least the clubhouse talks a little bit about it, that World Baseball Classic, I love it, but it took away a lot of our players. So we really weren't able to play and mesh together in spring training. Those guys went away for 2 to 3 weeks. And a guy like Trey Turner, who just came over, that's tough. And then JT was there, and Ranger was there, Walker was there. We had a bunch of guys that were away. And I think spring training is a time where everything comes together. You know, you start off a little slow. You don't want anybody to get hurt. Then you start ramping it up. Now we're getting to the point now we got a day off on Wednesday. We get back Wednesday, you know, you're within 2-3 weeks of opening day. But I just like the vibe that's going on in the clubhouse. I think the key, you know, we say injuries. The key is the pitching staff has to stay away from big-time injuries. You're going to have a starter maybe miss a start or two. You can't have a starter go on the IL for 4 or 5 weeks. That might hurt a little bit, but we do have a lot of depth. Again, take that into consideration that Dave's done a good job in adding depth to our team. We have depth almost at every position. But I look for a guy like Stott, Marsh, and Bohm. They're going to get better. They had a good years last year, but they're going to get better in the core group of guys. You know what they're going to do.
Speaking of that rotation, big day for Zack Wheeler today.
I asked him if I could have a loan. He laughed. He said, "Yeah, I'll give you. I'll throw you something."
Oh, he's got a couple bucks he can hand over to you.
That was a great sign for us. I mean, you know, with him and Aaron at the top of a rotation. I know that the mantra now is 5 innings and get the starter out, but those guys get you deep in the game, and you need that. And I really believe Ranger can do that if he can stay healthy. If you have 3 starters that can take you into the 7th inning, it really it keeps your bullpen fresh. You know, a lot of teams have one guy that can go 7 or 8, and the rest of them is bullpen. They throw 5. It's a matter of time. By June or July, that bullpen's worn out. I don't care how good they are down there. You keep getting them up and ask for 12 outs every night, it's going to wear on you. But I think the 3 guys at the top, I'll even throw Sanchez in there right now. Sanchez really looks good. So I like our rotation. I like our bullpen. Again, the key thing is staying healthy.
How good do some of the bigger name players look so far with Bryce and Nick? I was watching Schwarber take batting practice. It was a great view, sitting right behind the right where the batter's box is. His swing just looks so effortless.
It's effortless.
But it's monstrous
and the ball
at the same
jumps.
time. Yeah.
JT swinging real good. Harp's working out every day on the half field at first base. He looks. It wouldn't shock me if he won a Gold Glove. He's that good an athlete. Castellanos is swinging good. Turner's. I mean, everybody is. The only thing that Schwarber has done, he says, I need a hit. I think he's 0 for 6 or 7. I don't know what he is. I don't think we should worry about it.
Pencil in 45 bombs.
Exactly,
yeah.
and get his 100 walks. But it's a good lineup, and I like to see. Rojas is an unbelievable outfielder.
Yeah.
If he can put together a good spring here, that would really, really help our defense. And if he doesn't have a good spring, I think we're still in good shape. They could put Marsh in center. And then with Merrifield, this guy plays everywhere, so that's a big plus for us.
What do you make of Pache? Because I mean,
he's having a good spring.
A great spring, and it's funny. I do this every day, right? I'm doing sports talk radio, and it's been a lot of Rojas Marsh, and then Merrifield. They bring in Merrifield, and we talk about him, but it seems like Pache doesn't get talked about much.
He's in the mix.
There's
no question, he's in the mix. I think the biggest thing that's going against, not against those guys, but against our organization, is that Pache and the left fielder, who am I losing?
Cave.
Yeah. They're both out of options.
Yeah.
And I would think that if they got sent out, put out there,
somebody's going to pick them up.
There's no doubt in my mind.
Yeah.
I'd be shocked if that happened. So I mean, there's a way, obviously, that you could prevent that, but that's for Dave and the front office to do. But those 2 guys, I think, would be picked up if they went out on waivers. I really do.
Speaking of Larry Bowa, Larry. We mentioned the Wheeler extension. Aaron Nola got his this offseason. I would like to know, from your point of view, Nola struggled a little bit during the regular season, was tremendous again in the playoffs, big game pitcher. How much do you think he may be more comfortable this year knowing that that's locked up, that's done, there's no contract talk anymore?
I think anytime those guys are approaching free agency, they might not admit it. There's a little bit of pressure on them. They want to do good. They want to impress people, obviously, in the Philly organization, and if by chance they didn't get signed, they want to impress people that are scouting them. But to have those 2 guys locked up, that's huge for us. And, you know, you said Nola struggled a little bit. But I'll tell you about Nola. He doesn't miss starts.
No.
He stays off the IL. He takes the ball every 5th day. He's a competitor. I love the guy. I'm just glad those 2 guys are pitching in pinstripes, because I wouldn't want to face those 2 guys back-to-back. You know, we open up against Atlanta, and they're going to get our top 3 pitchers, and those 2 guys usually pitch pretty good against Atlanta.
How excited are you for a full season, knock on wood, with Bryce Harper?
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't like to put numbers out there, but he's capable of hitting 40-plus, 300, score 100, drive in 100. I mean, this he's an elite player. He's a franchise player. And he literally, if 3 or 4 guys in that lineup happen to go cold, you can jump on his back if he's hot. He'll carry you for a long time. And I think he's happy playing the infield. He's more involved. He feels like, hey, I'm in on every pitch and everything. So he's working with Bobby Dickerson, who I think is a very good infield instructor, every day on the half field. So he'll be ready to go come the end of the month.
How hard must that have been? Just in the middle of the season, all of a sudden he's playing a new position that he hasn't played before.
Well, when you're a good athlete like that, you know, if you think about him, he's been on the cover of Sports Illustrated, I think at 14, 15, 16 years old. Pressure doesn't bother him. In fact, it goes the other way. When that red light's on, he takes it to another level. And I think you're going to see that at first base. I think the biggest thing with him, it's not catching the ball or anything like that. It's making sure you're lined up on cutoffs and relays, bunt plays. It's all different. You know, when you go for 3 and you strike out a couple times, you can go out in the outfield and practice your swing in between pitches. You can't do that at first base. And I know Harp knows that. So it's going to keep him more involved. If just say he has one of those games where he didn't get any hits, he didn't swing the way he liked to swing, he can go out there and help win a game with his glove at first base.
I know you said, obviously, you can't, as good as your bullpen is, you still need to pitch 6-7 innings at times. But having a bullpen like this at your disposal, how much easier does that make your life as a manager if you're Rob Thompson?
It's great. I mean, they're all power pitchers.
Yes.
It's unbelievable. I mean, we got a guy last year that wasn't even on our team, and I looked at when they're on the road, I go to all the home games, but when they're on the road, I watched the time they brought in Hoffman, always second and third one out, he would get a big strikeout.
Yeah.
This guy, you talk about a blessing in disguise. And then you got Soto and Alvarado, Sir Anthony. You got some big-time arms at the back there. So if one of them happened to hit a little lull during the course of the season, you got 3 or 4 guys down there that could possibly close a game. So I don't know who he's going to pick as a closer. Maybe he won't. He might go matchups at first, and then if somebody gets real hot, he might ride that hand. But it's a good problem to have when you got 3 or 4 guys down there throwing 97 plus. That's a good problem to have.
So you ever going to play golf again? You hit the hole.
I'll play golf again. I'll give you a real quick recap of how this game affected me. I got the hole-in-one on a par 3. The next hole was a par 4 straight down the road. There was houses and a road on the right. Tee shot went into the houses. So the hole-in-one to out of bounds within about 3 minutes.
It's the beauty of golf, man.
It's a beautiful thing, isn't it?
It's incredible. Larry, listen, man, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming on
my
today.
pleasure.
Always great talking. You're always so good with your time coming on with us.
Well,
It's great to finally do it in person.
I appreciate it, and I think we're getting Philly fever here back in Philly, and I'm looking forward to a long run here this year.
Absolutely, another one. There he is, Larry Bowa, joining us. Coming up next, you don't want to miss it, Jason Kelce will have his press conference at 1 o'clock. We're all expecting a big announcement, so we'll hear that next, coming up at 1 right here on 97.5 The Fanatic.
Fanatic Sports Update.
Record-breaking extension. I'm Tom Alvord, and this update is brought to you by Juicy Juice.
975thefanatic.com. This is your home for Sunday Night Baseball from ESPN. Now, more of our Phillies spring training special with Andrew Salchunas live from Clearwater, Florida. This is 97.5 The Fanatic at 975thefanatic.com.
Welcome back, 97.5 The Fanatic. 12:52 is the time. We are about 8 minutes away from a big press conference. Jason Kelce will speak to the media coming up at 1 o'clock, so we will get the information. We'll find out if he's retiring. We'll find out if he's doing another year-by-year basis. We'll find out if this is the swan song season. Maybe he says, hey, I'm going to play one more year, but this will be my last. Brandon Graham said that publicly after the season came to an end, that he wanted to play one more year. He wanted to do a retirement season. So maybe Jason Kelce wants to do that as well. So it doesn't mean he's officially retiring. We don't know that, but that's just my guess. My guess is that Jason Kelce played his last game in an Eagles uniform when the Eagles lost to the Bucs in the playoff game, which is a horrible way to go. Terrible way to go. So, I mean, the only thing that keeps us all thinking he might return is, like, why would Jason Kelce want to go out like that? All I know is when I watched that documentary, I said it. I still remember. I was filling in for the best show ever. Tyrone was off. I was with Jen and Ricky, and I said that there's no way Jason Kelce plays more than one more year. Like, I just watched that documentary, and his wife, who's tremendous, she was talking about, you know, how she wants him to be healthy for their kids when they get older and wants to be able to get up and get down and play with them and be the great dad that he is. And when I'm hearing that, like, it's one thing for the player to say, like, oh, man, I don't want to go out there and try to win one more Super Bowl. It's another thing when you start hearing the family impact, which is not necessarily something we first think about, right? When we talk about sports, we sometimes don't talk about the human element, right? I just had Larry Bowa on, which was tremendous, by the way. You can hear that again on 97.5thefanatic.com once it gets posted. But we were talking about, you know, the players that got the big extensions, and I asked him whether or not Aaron Nola's extension, the looming free agent period, might have affected him at times last year. And he sure said, look, they're humans, so yeah, it happens. And that's something that we don't think about right away. And I don't blame anyone for not thinking about right away. I don't think about that right away, right? Like, I think about how you're playing, and if you're playing well, I will celebrate it. If you're playing poorly, I will be critical. And my first thought isn't what's going on in their life, or, you know, are they going to get a contract extension? Like, that's not my first thought. I don't think that's any fan's first thought. I don't think that's any media member's first thought. It's just, wow, why is this guy struggling? You know, what's wrong with his swing? What's wrong with his shot? What's wrong with his passing ability, right? Like, that's what our first thought is. So we don't really think about the human element. And there was a human element in that documentary of Jason Kelce. So we'll find out coming up in about 6 minutes if he does speak on time at 1 o'clock. So we're done with our interviews here at Baycare. So I just want to thank everybody that has been on so far today. We had Jeff Hoffman and Darick Hall, of course, two members of the current Phillies team. The Jeff Hoffman interview was awesome, just hearing his story of how he became a member of the Phillies when he pitched BP to Bryce Harper when Bryce Harper didn't want to go in the rehab stint, and he was so good that Bryce basically demanded the Phillies to sign him, and he got a contract, or got called up about 2 or 3 weeks later. So we spoke with Hoffman. We spoke with Darick Hall, who has a different role this year, right? Rhys Hoskins goes down last year, and he's your starting first baseman. That's not the case this year now with Bryce Harper as your everyday first baseman. So I want to thank Jeff Hoffman and Darick Hall. I want to thank Jason Stark, who popped on with us today. Also want to thank Larry Bowa, who popped on with us today, and Scott Lauber from the Inquirer. So tomorrow we're going to still have some more fun. We're going to still talk to some members of the Phillies. I know Alex Coffey of the Inquirer will be joining us tomorrow, and a lot in store for you tomorrow as well. But, you know, when a potential retirement of a legend could be coming our way in about 5 minutes, we're going to take the time to listen to it and take the time to react to it. Either way, like, even if he decides to play one more year, we'll react to it because, let's face it, like I talked about this the other day, it's not like Jason Kelce is retiring and he's Jason Peters, where Jason Peters was walking off the field in the first quarter of every single football game the last couple of years with the Eagles, and, oh, by the way, he's still in the league, right? Like, he was playing with the Seahawks last season. He was with the Cowboys 2 years ago. Jason Kelce was the all-pro center this season, all-pro. So it's not like he's retiring because he's of poor play and, you know, the age has got the best of him. No, it could just be other factors. So we'll hear that coming up in about 4 minutes, and then, you know, obviously Wednesday, Thursday, Friday when I'm back home and it's a lot of Eagles focus again, we'll be talking about what they need to do next if Jason Kelce does retire. That means Cam Jurgens will be your center. What are they going to do at right guard and all that kind of stuff. So we'll have the fallout conversation. But the big press conference coming your way at 1 o'clock. I want to thank our friends at NBC Sports Philadelphia right away because we'll be carrying their TV feed. So thank you to NBC Sports Philadelphia for allowing us to carry that later on today. I also want to thank the Phillies, Phillies.com, for allowing us to carry the Zack Wheeler press conference earlier today. Speaking of legends, and I found that very, very interesting. We had Scott Lauber on earlier today, and he told us that he spoke with Zack's agent, and basically this 3-year deal could be it for Zack Wheeler. Now, it's still 3 years, well, 4 years, because this year and then the 3 following. So it could be the final 4 years of Zack Wheeler, not just with the Phillies, but of his career in Major League Baseball. And look, it's something I keep on saying. It's something I've been saying all day today. I want you to just sit back and enjoy it because, damn, we got some good baseball ahead of us. So it's been a lot of fun. And all the thank yous I've given so far, I know I'll thank him even more tomorrow, but I want to thank John Brazier, who's been a big part of this for hooking us up here today. It's been a lot of fun. So the big Jason Kelce news. Tom, I want to get your gut feeling. I think it's a retirement. We've been talking about it a lot here, John and I and Mike and I, and we were just talking about it with Larry Bowa during the commercial break. Like, what do we think it is? I think it's a retirement. I'm not really thinking twice about it. You know, it could be an announcement that he wants to play one more year, but my gut feeling is it's a retirement. What are you thinking, Tom?
Yeah, as much as I would love for it to be the Wolf of Wall Street, I'm not bleeping leaving. His family's in attendance. Like, he doesn't usually do this. He hasn't done it in previous years when he's announced he's coming back.
The family's in attendance?
Yeah, I saw that on your boy, Ari Myrov. Jason,
the Myrov.
Yeah, Jason Kelce's family, including his brother Travis, are in attendance for his press conference today. As much as I would love for him to be back, this feels like this is the last year that we saw Jason Kelce play for the Birds.
Yeah, I just saw a tweet from Jeff McClain. Okay, so lots of reserved seats in NovaCare Auditorium for Jason Kelce's news conference. He tweeted this out about 15 minutes ago. Ed Kelce is in attendance. Jeff Stoutland is in attendance. Jason Bernstein, his longtime agent, in attendance, and all the family members. Connor Barwin, he's done. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I thought he was done without even having this information in front of me, but I imagine this is it for Jason Kelce, which that's gonna suck, man, because he's a Philadelphia legend. He's a tremendous player. He won a Super Bowl with the Eagles, the one and only Super Bowl with the Eagles. So I imagine this is going to be an emotional one, especially for Jason. Like, let's face it, he's not shy of showing his emotion. We've seen the incredible videos of him. I remember it was 2 years ago when they made it to the Super Bowl. Leading up to that Super Bowl game against the Chiefs, he held a meeting. He stood in front of stood in front of his teammates, and he was just breaking down to tears, man. Like, he's an emotional being, and I can only imagine that this will be as such. Like, I'm already thinking Zach Ertz feels. Remember when Zach Ertz had his press conference? He wasn't even retiring.
Oh, yeah.
He was just getting traded to the Arizona Cardinals, and he was breaking down. And so I can only imagine a guy that's been here longer, a guy that the career might be coming to an end. I'm sure this is not going to be an easy thing for Jason Kelce to get through. So we're awaiting that. It will happen momentarily. I mean, he's going to go down in infamy as one of, like, the biggest legends in Eagles franchise history. Screw that, Philadelphia franchise history, right? Like, I was just joined by Larry Bowa, which I'm looking at a legend right there, right in front of me. Jason Kelce's up there too, man. It's gonna be different without him. And I know, like, he's still gonna be around. It's not like he's gonna probably do media stuff. He'll be all over TV. He'll still have his podcast. There's still gonna be a million things. It's not like Jason Kelce's gonna retire and we're never gonna hear from him ever again. You know that you will, whether he's working for a network or working with the team. I know he talked about that. There was that report as well that he might still want to work with the team in one way or another. He himself said that. I remember he was interviewed, and he said, with the team one way or another. So I know he wants to still be involved. So we're just kind of awaiting that momentarily. So we'll get to that any minute now when Jason Kelce speaks. Again, thanks to our friends at NBC Sports Philadelphia. Also, another thing that I just want to bring up before we get to the press conference, while we're kind of killing time until he comes up. Tough news. Chris Mortensen passed away yesterday at the age of 72. Shame on me for waiting until 1 o'clock to bring it up. But Chris Mortensen was one of the kinder people in this industry. You hear stories of ego all the time. You hear stories of this guy's really not that nice in person or whatever. Like, Chris Mortensen is one of the nicest people that I've ever been able to interact with. And he was a guy that would come on weekend shows. He was, and Tom, you get the deal. You know how sometimes people don't come on the weekends, right? And
Oh,
it's
yeah.
because they have family lives, right? Like, right? And I don't know if it's because they look down upon maybe some of the weekend shows, but it's just not the same, right? And so, you know, it was tough seeing that news because he was one of the nicer people that I've ever had the chance to deal with, and that was tough. And oh, by the way, like, you want to talk about us, Tom? Like, we grew up with guys like Chris Mortensen, right, on TV. So tough news yesterday.
I said it yesterday during my show. I was like, literally, everyone has an impact on you when you want to get into this industry. Like, you watch Mort's a guy that you watched all the time growing up. Myself, I know you did. That is an icon when it comes to sports media. Yeah, really tough news. Obviously dealt with the sickness. I believe it was throat cancer. So yeah, a legend when it comes to sports media.
Absolutely. Now I think Jason's going to be up momentarily.
Yeah, not yet.
I'm also seeing that Travis Kelce's there. So look, I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that this is going to be a retirement announcement for Jason Kelce. By the way, Bob Nightingale about 15-20 minutes ago tweeted out that 4 new teams have reached out to Scott Boras about Blake Snell and Jordan Montgomery since the start of spring training. We had Jason Stark on earlier today. He does not see it happening. He knows that there's been reports with the Phillies linked to Blake Snell, but from what he's heard, it never really was a conversation. So it doesn't look like Blake Snell will be coming here. The Jordan Montgomery thing, like you can't give Aaron Nola 7 years and Jordan Montgomery 8 years because he wants more than Aaron Nola, and then on top of that, the extension that you give Zack Wheeler today, and all of a sudden give Montgomery more money or more years too. So I don't think the Phillies will be in either of those sweepstakes. And right now I'm okay with this rotation. You got 2 legit horses at the top, and Zack Wheeler and Aaron Nola. Ranger Suarez is a hell of a pitcher. It's just he hasn't been healthy, as Larry Bowa pointed out. It's just one of the things that he's been dealing with, that he hasn't necessarily been healthy all the time. And the World Baseball Classic kind of messed him up a little bit. He's had the visa issues the last couple of years, so he got to camp on time this year, which is great. That's a good sign for Ranger Suarez. So very exciting that you have 3, I'll say maybe not 3 horses, but you have 3 very, very good arms. And then you see how Walker and Christopher Sanchez work out. And if you need spot starts, you have some guys, that you're working your way up. Spencer Turnbull looked pretty good the other day. I'm not going to get overexcited for Spencer Turnbull because his first start didn't look all that great, but he looked good the other day. And then you'll see come deadline time if the Phillies are active, and if the World Series window is there, which it will be, I expect them to be active. But right now, I'm cool with the rotation. Like, I don't have a problem with the Phillies right now. I don't. Like, the other day, I was kind of talking about how I'm bummed out that it was a quiet off season, but this team's still so freaking talented. Like, I don't know what else they were going to do. I was interested in Jorge Soler. I was, instead of having to go with a platoon, and wondering, all right, who's going to win the battle between Rojas and Marsh and Pache. Like, I would have been cool with a guy that you could pencil in for 30 bombs, maybe even 40 bombs, especially at Citizens Bank Park. That's another guy that would get a decent-sized contract. You got a 3-year deal from San Francisco. They were the only team that was willing to offer extra years, which I think was important for Soler because he's been doing 1-year deals. But other than that, I mean, what else more did you want? Like, I don't know what else more you could have done. The bullpen, you're believing in the arms that you had last year. Orion Kirkring's now going to be a part of it for an entire season. So there's that to be excited about. So I don't know. Like, Tom, I'll ask you, were you expecting anything more from the Phillies this offseason? Because I kind of was, but at the same time, I'm sitting here today, I'm going, all right, this is still a good ball club.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. It feels like such a slow Phillies offseason. I think it's because the Aaron Nola deal happened as early as it did. And I think it's because it's Aaron Nola. You're bringing back a guy that is returning, that's been here for, the last half decade or more, it feels like. So even though it feels like
And to which Stark said if they didn't get Nola, they would have gone in a different route. Like, they would have gone after probably Jordan Montgomery, right? So it's like, all right, yeah, you brought back a guy, but he did enter free agency. It's not like they just extended him. He wasn't a free agent, and if they didn't bring back Nola, it would have been somebody else. So I guess the conversation is, would you have rather have somebody other than Nola? And, not just Yamamoto, who I know the Phillies were interested in. Dombrowski has been public about that. They were still going to try getting him even with the Nola contract. But if not Yamamoto, like, who else would you have wanted over Aaron Nola at this point?
Yeah,
and you can't even say Snell or Montgomery. They're not even on teams at this point.
And we got Kelce coming up to the podium.
Okay, here's Jason Kelce's press conference.
Thanks for coming, guys. See how long this lasts. Not a good start. There you go. There I lay. This is going to be long. There I lay, face up in the cool morning's dew-covered grass, waiting for a whistle I knew would come at any second. Knowing full well Anthony Harrell was a couple yards away on the ground waiting for the same. The foreign objects that rest upon my shoulders and head weighed me down and unbalanced my awaiting body. As the whistle blew, I arose, turned all in one motion, and ran at my teammate. It isn't even the collision I remember most, but the feeling before of what in the fuck is about to happen. How is it going to feel? Will I win? Whenever I smell the clippings of a freshly mowed grass, I am brought back to this day. I am brought back to this day. 12 years old. Roxborough Middle School, first day in pads. I've been asked many times, why did I choose football? What drew me to the game? And I never have an answer that gets it right. The best way I can explain it is what draws you to your favorite song, your favorite book. It's what it makes you feel. The seriousness of it, the intensity of it. Stepping on the field was the most alive and free I had ever felt. There was a visceral feeling with football unlike any other sport. The hairs on my arms would stand up. The hairs on my arms would stand up. I could hit somebody, run around like a crazed lunatic, and then get told, good job. I loved football. Whether it was in my backyard with my brother, on the playground with my friends, or suiting up on Friday nights at Cleveland Heights High School. I loved everything about it. Although I hadn't met him yet, Jeff Stoutland often shares a quote his father would tell him. More often than not, the easy way is the wrong way. Football was hard, much harder than any sport I had ever played, physically and mentally. In most other sports, I was bigger, faster, stronger than everyone else. On the football field, those traits were matched. On the lacrosse field, I felt like LeBron James. On the football field, I was Billy Hoyle. I loved the challenge that football was. The joy of winning, the agony of defeat, the anxiety of the unknown, and the camaraderie of my teammates. I'd like to thank my high school football coaches, Mike Jones, Damian Creel, Kahari Hicks, and Gary Robolewski. Coach Robo, you know who you are. My hockey coaches, Kirk Gunther, Steve Bogus, and Eddie Babcox, and my lacrosse coaches, Felipe Quintana and Ben Beckman. I'd also like to thank my band teacher, Brett Baker. All of you taught me countless lessons and put up with a very young, rambunctious kid that was full of immaturity, stupidity, and cockiness. I would without question not be where I am today without your efforts with me and the countless other children you served in my brother and I's hometown, Cleveland Heights. From Cleveland Heights, I entered the University of Cincinnati as a walk-on. As a linebacker, I had no idea what to expect, but scenes from Rudy would often race in my mind. It became apparent immediately that walk-ons would have to fight harder for their opportunities than the rest of the team. I had no stars, no investment from the team or the coaches. I'd have to earn everything, and that's good because I had no clue what hard work was yet. Knowing that I had to earn my respect every day made me committed like never before. In my first college weightlifting session, graduate assistant Jordan Roth put me through the hardest weightlifting session I had ever been through. At the end of it, he said if I could walk around the perimeter of the weight room holding my hands above my head, I could leave. And if I couldn't hold my hands above my head, I'd have to stay and clean the whole weight room. That entire year, I found out later that cleaning the weight room was something I would get used to. That entire year I consider a blessing. D'Antonio ran a tough program, the weight room was even tougher, and I redefined in my mind what working hard actually was. They pushed me into areas of fatigue I didn't know I had, and for that experience, I am forever grateful to all of them. After redshirting my first year, Mark D'Antonio left Cincinnati for Michigan State, and we hired up-and-coming head coach from Central Michigan, Brian Kelly. This turned out to be the biggest turning point in my career. Not because of Brian, he was great and we enjoyed tremendous success together, but because he brought with him strength coach Paul Longo. 2 weeks into winter workouts, Paul whispered to me in the middle of warm-ups, "You'd make a great center." I shrugged it off. Offensive line? Never in a million years did I think I'd play that position. Paul was different. As opposed to working guys into the ground, his motto was work smarter, not harder. His main goal was to improve us as athletes and make us stronger, faster, more explosive. He didn't care about anything else. Once during a conditioning drill, I saw a teammate struggling to keep up during a run, so I slowed down to encourage him. And he yelled at me. He said, "You run this exercise the best you can. Lead from the front. It's my job to take care of the back." Paul moved me to offensive line that spring. And it ended up being the single greatest move that ever happened to me as a football player. There are too many people to thank for my times at Cincinnati, so I'd like to limit it to coaches Paul Longo, Jeff Quinn, Brian Kelly, Mark D'Antonio, strength coaches Tim Swanger, Dave Andrews, Coach Kerry Combs, Coach Butch Jones, as well as athletic trainer Bob Mangine and orthopedic doctor Angelo Colosimo. Of course, all of my teammates and friends, university support staff, all of you made my time there something I wouldn't trade for the world. Some of the most enjoyable years of my life. After my senior year ended, it became apparent the NFL would be an opportunity. Although few teams had interest in a lineman that weighed 280 pounds. Lucky for me, the Eagles had just hired Howard Mudd, a legendary coach who valued offensive linemen for their athleticism more than their size. Having watched and emulated Jeff Saturday in my own game, it all felt too perfect when the Eagles selected me in the 6th round. Immediately after being drafted, my agent, Jason Bernstein, said, "You have no idea how perfect this is. You are going to fit in great." Come on. You're going to fit in great in Philadelphia. This is your kind of town. "13 seasons in Philadelphia. And I look back on a career filled with ups and downs. I'd like to thank the 4 head coaches I played for, Andy Reid, Chip Kelly, Doug Peterson, and Nick Sirianni. Consider myself lucky to have played for each of you. I'd like to thank Jeffrey Lurie for his dedication to building an organization that values its employees as people and gives them the resources necessary to thrive. I've only had one boss, so I don't know much to compare to. But Jeffrey always made it a point to show his appreciation and love for his players on and, more importantly, off the field. I'd like to thank Howie Roseman for drafting me and for always working hard to improve our team, even from the other side of the building that one year. Whether it be coaches, players, salary cap, or the numerous other things you control, you work tirelessly and calculatedly to improve this organization. I'd like to thank Big Dom DeSandro, truly the life force of this organization. No one gives more time and energy to this team. At the drop of a hat, Dom is by your side. My family and I give our sincerest thank yous for always treating us with dignity and assistance. There are so many teammates, coaches, support staff, trainers, equipment, cafeteria workers. You guys have no idea the amount of people in this building it takes to assist our players and me. I'd like to thank you all by name, but we'd be here far too long for anyone to continue listening. So instead, I will share memories, if that's all right with you all. When I look back down the road, I'm sure there are things I will forget, but these are some of the things I'm sure I won't. I won't forget the call I got from Andy Reid on draft day and my father rushing into the room. With tears streaming down his face as his son's dreams had just been realized. It had just been announced on TV I had been drafted by the Philadelphia Eagles. And I won't forget 2 years later, that same man and my brother receiving a call and him being drafted by the Kansas City Chiefs. This time, the tears streaming down both my father and I's face as my brother had just realized his own. I won't forget the first time I saw Jason Peters do a one-on-one pass set with Trent Cole and being amazed at the speed, balance, and power I had just witnessed. It reminded me or looked like a grizzly bear wrestling a panther. It was so impressive it made me question if I was good enough to play in this league. I watched the next couple guys go and thought, okay, I can do this. I won't forget Thirsty Thursdays at 879, a bar owned by Brent Selleck and Todd Hermans that stayed open a whole 6 months because nobody paid for a drink. Poor business practices indeed. That bar may have closed quickly, but the friendships it forged remain open to this day. I won't forget my second training camp, walking downstairs in my Lehigh dorm to paramedics rushing in, and Coach Dave Culley's look on his face. It made the expression like he had seen a ghost. A whole lot clearer. I asked if I could help. And he said, no, just go to practice. Come on. We would find out later at practice that Garrett Reed had passed away. Only a few hours after that, Andy addressed the team. It's the most intense moment I've ever shared with a group of men. And the outpouring of support and love for my friend and the Reed family at the funeral soon after was truly remarkable. I won't forget Chip Kelly's first game as Eagles head coach against the Washington Redskins. We ran close to 50 plays in the first half. We were so tired, but it didn't matter because they couldn't stop us. The NFL had never seen something like this before. I remember all of us thinking after that game, this is going to change the NFL. I won't forget walking out onto a snowless field before warm-ups against the Detroit Lions, and then walking out of the tunnel to a blizzard. The Lions in white jerseys blended into the snow so well I could not see the secondary of the defense. And the second half was all LaShawn McCoy. He somehow figured out a way to cut on a dime that day, and man, it was incredible to watch. It was probably the most fun game of football I've ever been in. It felt like we were all kids again that day, just playing in the backyard. I won't forget finding out in the 2017 Rams game that Carson Wentz had tore his ACL. The whole team had an uneasy feeling in the locker room, all of us questioning what this would mean, until Malcolm Jenkins addressed the team. He gave a very typical Malcolm speech, invoking confidence in who we were, and breaking it down with his patented, we all we got, we all we need. I won't forget Nick Foles having the game of his life on the biggest stage possible. And the biggest dick on the team going up to Doug Peterson and asking for the Philly special. And Doug Peterson having the biggest balls in the stadium to say, yeah, let's do it. And Brandon Graham finding a way to stop Tom Brady once, literally once. And the way the ball hung in the air on that last Hail Mary and how it felt like an eternity. Just looking, no sound registering, completely engulfed in the moment. When it finally landed, running onto the field, looking for a flag, anything that would mean it was over. We had done it. I won't forget the parade and what it meant to the city of Philadelphia. The joy it brought our community, and the closure it gave to so many. The stories from fans that had been waiting generations for that moment fulfilled that triumph to another level. On the route, I remember meeting a woman with ashes of a dead relative whom she had promised wouldn't miss the parade if the Eagles had ever won it. A speech that had written itself and one that had symbolized what we had all lived as players, as a team, and as a city. That wasn't my speech, it was Philadelphia's. I won't forget my mother becoming mom of the NFL, a representative for all moms out there who have sacrificed so much for their children. I won't forget Nick Sirianni sending me kegs of beer to convince me to keep playing these last few years. He knows the key to my heart. I won't forget making the playoffs in his first season, the Super Bowl in his next, and the immense heartbreak at the collapse of this last season. And although last season truly sucked, I wouldn't trade any of my time with you or those teams for the world. Everything happens for a reason, and I have truly enjoyed my time with you, Coach. Sometimes the flowers get knocked back a bit. But the roots remain. And I can't wait to watch what reblossoms this next season. I won't forget falling short to the Chiefs. This is where it's going to go off the rails. Thanks, Brett. I won't forget falling short to the Chiefs and the conflicted feeling of immense heartbreak I had selfishly. For myself and for my teammates. And at the same time, the amount of pride I had that my brother had climbed the mountaintop once again. We have a small family. We have a small family. We have a small family. No cousins. One aunt, one uncle. It was really my brother and I our whole lives. We did almost everything together. Competed, fought, laughed, cried, and learned from each other. We invented games, imagined ourselves as star players of that time. We'd envisioned making the winning plays day after day on Kohler Ridge Road. We won countless Super Bowls in our minds before ever leaving the house. And when we weren't playing, we were at the other one's games, but seated in a lawn chair or a bench, a Capri Sun in our hand that Mom had packed, cheering during the game, and waiting outside afterward to celebrate a victory together, or offer encouragement after a defeat. There is no chance I'd be here without the bond Travis and I share. It made me stronger, tougher, smarter, and taught me the values of cooperation, loyalty, patience, and understanding. It's only too poetic I found my career being fulfilled in the city of brotherly love. I knew that relationship all too well. Some people struggle to play in this city. They can't handle the booze, the media, or our fans. Consider it a great blessing to play in the most passionate sports town in America. The sense of urgency in this city to win has pushed our organization, has fueled it to take chances, fix problems, and work tirelessly in an effort to win. At times, you hate it as an athlete. especially those new to our city. But when you've been through it enough, you learn to appreciate it. No one celebrates their own like the city of Philadelphia. Athletes become demigods in this city, even ones whose deeds span decades before. The Eagles are the #1 ticket in town, the most talked about thing at nearly every moment. With that amount of attention, you better be ready to overcome the lows that will happen and be ready to persevere in the face of the criticism. Yes, they will let you know when you are not performing well. Every time. But they will also love you if you show effort, aggression, desire, the will to fight. They will love you in this city if you love it the way you love your brother. You will be loved by going above and beyond to show that you care, because they care. They've been caring for generations in this town about this team, and they aren't about to accept a bunch of excuses and soft-ass nonsense representing the name on the front of the jersey, something they've invested their entire lives in. If you don't like what the fans and media are saying as a player, it's very easy. Love them, treat them like your brothers, and go out and play your balls off. Wear your heart on your sleeve, and I guarantee you change those narratives. I remember seeing Zach Ertz shy away from a block one game against Vontaze Burfict in the Cincinnati Bengals. Rightfully so, the fans ripped him apart, crushing him for doing it. The next week, the first catch I saw Zach Ertz snag, he ran after the catch like I had never seen. It took 3 guys to bring him down, and I heard the link erupt with cheers for his effort. Today, you won't find a single Philadelphian with a bad word to say about Zach Ertz and the legacy he left behind. As players, you write the narratives. The fans and media, for the most part, it's occasionally different, only write what you give them. If you go above and beyond in this city, you will be rewarded beyond your wildest dreams. I saw firsthand the wrath of the Eagles fans in the 2016 Eagles season. And rightfully so, I had an awful start to that season where I was often overpowered, had many holding penalties that cost our team, and looked like one of the worst centers in the league. I was wanted out of town by nearly everyone. And it wasn't just the fans that wanted me to gone. It was nearly everyone in this organization. That offseason, I heard trade rumors galore and speculation I'd be cut. I imagine if the Eagles had received a trade offer for a brand new set of washing machines, they may have pulled the trigger. Hell, if I was in charge, I would have pulled the trigger. There's only one person in this building who still wanted me, and it's he who I have to thank most for the career I've had. That's Jeff Stoutland. No one has been more influential or meaningful to my success on the field in my career than Stout. I think one of the greatest things a human being can give another is belief. This world, life, it can be hard. It can challenge yourself to points of self-doubt, and that is a dangerous place to be. Well, I am lucky. My whole life, I have been surrounded by people that have believed in me. My father, my mother, my brother, Paul Longo, Howard Mudd, and in my darkest hour as a Philadelphian, Stout was the one who believed in me. He was adamant my problems could be fixed with proper technique, fundamentals, and work. And work we did. That off-season and training camp, I focused on using my hands better, playing with leverage, proper footwork, and prepared with an edge to prove to myself that I was good enough. following season in 2017, I enjoyed the finest season of my 13-year career, not only as a player, but as a team. And it meant more because of the struggles and work we had been through. Without him, I doubt any of this would have been possible, or that I'd still be here. Since that offseason, I have amassed 6 All-Pros, 5 Pro Bowls, and am recognized by some as one of the best centers to ever play the game. I am very proud knowing where I once was and the legacy I have left behind, and the man we can all thank is Jeff Stoutland. Second stout quote of the evening: no man is an island. We must draw our strengths from others. I'd like to thank my teammates, my other brothers. Oh, how I've drawn my strengths from you all. I was fortunate to play with great players, some of the best this league has to offer. But it was really off the field, just sitting in the cafeteria with my teammates, breaking bread, and talking about life, that were some of the most meaningful times I spent in my career. The NFL is truly like no other place, and at the same time, represents America as a whole like no other. Fat offensive linemen from Cleveland play on the same field as skinny wide receivers from Louisiana and kickers from Chicago. Tight ends from Stanford play next to tackles from Kilgore Community College. Defensive ends from inner city Detroit play next to defensive tackles from Yazoo City, Mississippi. 6'9" Jordan Mailata plays the same sport as 4'8" Darren Sproles. The melting pot of geographic location, economic background, race, body type, personality, and athletic traits of an NFL locker room is truly remarkable. And we all rely on each other and respect one another and each of our differences because we know we're stronger together. I will always cherish this brotherhood, the relationships it fostered, and how unique an experience it has been to enjoy the field with you all. Coming to work every day with a group of men who were driven to be the best in the world at what they do is an environment that will surely be hard to replicate. I won't forget the Eagles' Christmas party in 2014 and heading out afterwards with a bunch of my teammates to Buffalo Billiards, where my life would change forever. That night, I'd meet my future wife. I still remember the moment she walked through the door. The first instance is burned in my retina. It was like she glided through the opening, an aura around her. Then she started talking. And I thought, man, is this what love feels like? She was beautiful and smart, serious, yet playful. I knew it right away. I think it's no coincidence I have enjoyed my best years of my career with Kylie by my side. Every accolade I have ever received has come with her in my life. She has brought the best out of me through love, devotion, support, honesty, intelligence, and of course, a swift kick in the ass from time to time. She has also given me 3 beautiful girls and a life that increasingly brings me more fulfillment off the field than it does on. We've had a great run, Kai. I am a product of my upbringing. I think one of the best things a person can be in this world is a father. A father who is present, loving, devoted just may be the greatest gift a child could ask for in our society. and I have a damn good one. My father believed in me more than anyone. He believed in my brother, and whenever my own insecurities would arise or self-doubt would come in, he would stifle them with the warm embrace of belief, unwavering love and belief. My father worked in the steel industry in Cleveland for the majority of his life. I remember him taking me into a plant one time and standing in awe of the molten steel and watching a giant ladle containing a bunch of it hover over our heads just feet away. The heat radiated when the molten steel was in sight. And I remember thinking how utterly amazing my father's work was.
All right, that's Jason
He was the
Kelce's
man
press
and
conference.
continues to be
Look,
the
I
man
would love to play
and
that for the next
father I
5
strive to
hours
be.
if we have to, but it's toward the end of the show.
My
We
mother
have 2 more
was
breaks
a
left
part
to
of a
hit. So,
generation of females.
incredible press conference, the retirement of Jason Kelce. We'll be right back. We'll have like a couple minutes to react to it before we hand things over to the best show ever. So, 97.5 The Fanatic.
Fanatic Sports Update.
Jason Kelce retires. Yes, it happens. This update is brought to you by Wendy's. With Wendy's Breakfast 2 for $3 Biggie Bundles, you can choose the pair you want. Limited time only during breakfast hours. U.S. price and participation may vary. Not valid in any combo. Single item at regular price. Yes, Eagles legend Jason Kelce announced just now that he is retiring from the NFL after 13 seasons with the Eagles. Kelce is 36 years old. Seven-time